Hypocrisy.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Lawsplaining the Interwebs. I'm your host, Nick Rekieta of Rekieta Law, a small law firm in central Minnesota. And with me today is my good friend, good Lawgic, a.k.a. Joe.
Hey.
How's it going, man?
I am awesome. Really awesome.
Really
so much
awesome?
Happening.
That's like a strong statement. I like
that. No, I'm really awesome. You can see I'm in this beautiful home over here.
I like your grand piano.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
How many concertos have you put on?
Oh, countless. I can't even begin to describe. I'm a virtuoso. I'm a regular virtuoso. No, I am on location right now. And
on location, what does that mean?
That means not in my regular studio, and that means that I have weird audio and a terrible background, so I'm using StreamYard's stupid little virtual thing, which is why my hand will disappear if I move too fast. Yeah, I know. It's like
that was like the crisis actors at Sandy Hook and the disappearing puddles.
We have to go right there. We gotta go right there.
There's nowhere else. There's nowhere else we could have gone, Joe.
Yeah, first place you gotta go right there is Alex Jones territory.
Oh my God. Well, now that the government's after me, I know all about the fake actors and the crisis actors. Speaking of which, we're going to talk a little bit about the Trump assassination attempt. I think we've got to, just because, not because it hasn't been talked about. Obviously, we're days separated from that, but I haven't talked with you about it. And I think kind of to bring things full circle, I discovered you when you were talking about Trump. Like that's where I was like, oh, who's this guy? Who's this guy? He's on Twitter. He's talking about Trump and stuff. And that was the beginning of our beautiful friendship.
It was actually Texas versus Pennsylvania. It was a breakdown that Nick saw of me railing against the Supreme Court for being too cowardly to grant certiorari to that case. And he reached out and said, I love your work. You want to come on for a show? And I was like, all right, sure. Are you kidding me? I had 300 subs at the time.
Yeah.
And you pushed me up over 1,000. And so you were at 90K. When you reached out to me, you had crazy growth because it was 3-week period. You reached out to me and I wasn't able to come on for 3 weeks. And during that time, you went from 50K to 90K. And
right. It was
the end of 2020. At the end of 2020. I think you explained it. Yeah, I think you explained it like they were trying to pump your show up because they had advertising dollars to burn off.
It wasn't like mine in particular. It was a friend of mine had figured out a formula basically for generating views and subscribers on YouTube during the election cycle. And my thought on it was they've sold a bunch of ads and they need to fill ad space with specific demographics. So it was less about any particular show or anything like that. It was, how do you reach the demographic that the ads are going to? And my friend Doug TeNapel had figured out this is how to get these demographics, where it was really looking for probably 25 to 55-year-old Republican voters. And selling effectively Trump and RNC ads is what it seemed like was working. I don't know. It wasn't so conscious on that, but it was as this is going and you're going, why are these videos they're these very basic videos, couple minutes long. They didn't say a lot, but they just it was almost like a Fox News segment, right? 3 minutes about a subject. And it seemed very comfortable for the boomer generation. And they were watching YouTube videos that were too long to be shorts, but they were too short to be really deep analysis. They were watching them like a news segment. And it's oh, okay. And YouTube was all too happy to deliver ads right through those. So you would get these videos and do them a couple minutes long and they'd hit 80,000, 100,000 views consistently. And the formula was really simple. Basic title, basic thumbnail, hit the topic that people are looking for, the same topic that a Daily Wire or something was going to hit, and people were just eating them up, and they could watch 10 of these same types of videos from different creators at a time. Again, Doug Tenable, Beheezy was one of them. There was some Arizona woman who was like watching the Arizona stuff. I can't remember her name. Who cares? I don't know. They were all doing it. And I was like, well, I tried it out for a while, got subscriber growth, but I hated doing that type of content. This like really short form stuff. It felt, to put it one way, it felt a little vapid. And so I kind of stopped doing that, but it worked.
Yeah, vapid works. If you want growth, vapid works.
Yeah.
So, and who would have known back then? Who would have known back then that one day I would actually crack that 100K finally? So, thank you.
Very happy about that, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You deserve it. Not a lot of people do, and you definitely do deserve it.
Well, thank you.
But yeah, so we're back. We're going to talk about Trump because it's now election season again. Biden has stepped out of the race at the 11th hour and endorsed Kamala Harris. And gosh,
it's almost like they were gift wrapping it for Trump because
he
honestly,
has that voice that makes you want to die.
Oh my gosh. If only that was like the worst part of her as a candidate. She is such a terrible candidate. I mean, just the way she spins in obvious circles, the way she sounds so patronizing and talking down to people. Like when she's trying to explain a situation that she doesn't understand, so she starts talking as if the audience is a bunch of 5-year-olds. Ukraine was invaded by Russia. You see, Russia is on the border of Ukraine, and Russia is a bigger country. So Russia invaded and sent troops into Ukraine, and that's a bad thing. So it's like, oh my God, just listening to her talk, you're like, this is the wannabe free leader of the world. Like she said, yeah, she sounds like she's a kindergarten teacher.
It's like Hillary Clinton with somehow less personality.
Yes. Like
she's got the shrill. Yeah, she's got that shrill, like Fran Drescher type sound going. Mm-hmm. It's like, why? Why are you always like this? Why are these like high level female Democrat politicians? They are always shrill. They have no poise, and they're just irritating. They're just the last people you want to listen to. And
it's just such. The one thing people know is assigned to her is the border. Is there any bigger disaster that we've seen in the last 25 years than the way America's handled the border?
She's done phenomenal.
I mean, it's unbelievable. This is the only thing she's known for is she's the border czar. And she's also known for the fact that when she was on an interview and she's being asked, have you been to the border? Like, you haven't even been there. And it's really a statement. If you think about what the question is really saying, you're not taking this seriously. And her response was, well, I haven't been to Europe either. And it's like, are you out of your freaking mind? The question is that you're not taking it seriously. So now you're making a joke out of the fact that you're not taking it seriously. It's like she's so clueless at reading the room and so inept at getting anything done that, she basically she's the definition of a DEI hire. That it's like she's just someone who's completely out of her element, ill-equipped to handle this, what she's already gotten. She's been ill-equipped to handle it, and now she wants the most important job in the world. And it's just like, how can anyone think that this is something Americans are gonna actually get behind? It's astonishing. So
no, I think it's I was thinking about it the other day, and I'm like, why this? And it's like, well, if Joe is the other one, if Joe Biden is on the, if his health is on the outs or whatever, and they need to get rid of him at this point in time, they can throw Kamala to the wolves. They can blame racism. They can blame the fact that she's a woman. They have a lot of excuses as to why she's going to lose, other than, actually, you're not popular. Like the Democrat Party is not popular to win the presidency this year. I know Joe Biden won in a landslide. They're like, oh, finally we got an old white guy back. Oh, whew, we were running out of those. And the Democrat Party. But like, I know that he won in the greatest landslide that's ever been heard of in the history of humanity somehow. But you know, when Kamala loses, they're going to be able to blame it on her being female, but blame it on her ethnicity. And it's like, well, no, it's just you guys suck. Like everything's expensive. Going to the grocery store costs a fucking fortune, a literal fortune. Every time I go, I'm like, wow, why is everything cost so much right now?
And yet their messaging. Did you catch his speech tonight? I mean, you hear the Democrats talk, and you think that this is the greatest administration in the history in the last 100 years. I mean,
we've accomplished so much in 3 years. Like, what did you do?
You're like, what? What did you get done? Like, what do you really believe that you got done? And I think they're starting to believe that their own farts smell amazing. Like they literally will see a fart and it's like filling up the room, and it could be cloudy and gross, and it's like, let's bask in it. Oh, it is so good. Oh, this is the best. And that they're so just tone deaf to how Americans feel about them, and they're so used to gaslighting that they assume that obviously legacy media is going to repeat whatever we say, and the Americans are going to swallow it. And we're in an age where Americans seem to be really waking up to just what complete crap government and legacy media is. So, yeah, it's a bad time to be in their shoes. Yeah, I'm going to ask you this. By the way. Yeah. I'm going to ask you a question about this. So, Joe Biden steps down. Kamala, for her, this is the only opportunity she has because she's not equipped to run for president. She never will be. But now she's vice president, and it's really awkward to tell the black woman, Indian woman, whatever race she is today, woman, that's
the convenient race du jour.
Wait, the convenience store race?
I did not say that. That's on you. That's on you. I would like a slushie though. I really would. To kick her aside would just be completely, the Democrats can't ever look like they're doing that. But if you're Gavin Newsom or even Gretchen Whitmer, and you have like this aspiration that you're going to be able to be sitting in the White House one day, would you not think to yourself, okay, I know Joe just stepped aside, but it's only 4 months to the election. I don't have a chance to really build up my national image in a way that's positive. And I'm running against a guy who right now just had the most iconic moment for any presidential candidate in American history. So do I really want to run up against that on a short time window, or should I just let this idiot kick in here and roll over, and then I'll run in 28? Like, if you're Gavin Newsom, would you say I want to jump in right now against Trump at his fever pitch high? No way, because when you lose this election, the likelihood that you're the nominee next time around goes way down. And Gavin Newsom is much better running cleanup after Kamala loses this election. Now, of course, there is a chance that she could win. I mean, I think right now her chances are very poor. Very poor. Trump had an iconic moment. His base is going to be highly energized. His penumbra is going to be highly energized as well. The people who are uncertain, Republicans who are uncertain about Trump, are going to be energized by the assassination attempt and by what happens. And now that Joe is stepping down, like I saw some article, they have these desperate articles out there right now. It's like an article today was about how, Trump supporters are flipping to Kamala Harris. It's like, which one did that? Like, so, come on. Like, that was probably a prank. And then there was one, it was like, and it was from like Slate or some other idiotic publication. But it's like, finally, a memeable presidential candidate. Joe Biden just wasn't memeable enough. So Kamala Harris, like, her gaffes are at least personable, where Joe Biden had no personality. I'm like, you think personable gaffes of Kamala Harris, like her, like the coconut tree, like you just fell out of a coconut tree, like that's going to win the election. And this guy's like, yeah, that's going to be it. It's like, this is what you've got. Like, this is your hope for the election. It's not that she's going to come in and have a strong policy on even some good Democrat platform pieces. No, she's going to come in and she's going to relate to the kids. Like, one of the least relatable people is Kamala Harris. Yeah. What did you do? Well, I put all the black people in California in prison, just all of them.
That's the other thing. I mean, Tulsi Gabbard, she basically showed, and I really hope that they stay away from the low hanging fruit and going after her. I mean, the low-hanging fruit is like, the whole sex for favors for Willie Brown and all that other stuff. I don't want them to go down that road at all. Because there's so much terribleness to her standing as an individual that Tulsi Gabbard skewered her. I mean, destroyed her. It's a 3-minute clip. You can watch Tulsi Gabbard hitting her on exactly what you just mentioned. The fact that she turned the California prison system into her own personal slave camp, that she kept people beyond their sentence. She's literally the granddaughter of slave owners. I mean, literally the great granddaughter of slave owners who had her own slave camp and keeping people who were not supposed to be in prison. She kept evidence away from someone who was on death row that was never supposed to be kept away from them. I mean, she was just a monster.
I mean, what's a Brady violation amongst friends?
Yes, I mean, in order to have him put to death. I mean, it's just like, I think it was put to death. It was just unbelievable how she just abused whatever power she had whenever someone was fool enough to actually give it to her. And this is the woman who basically is supposed to be our leader. That's our next leader that everyone's jumping on board for. And they don't want the actual leader who basically stared death in the face and screamed, fight, 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 with American flag flying over him. How the hell Trump managed to orchestrate that, I don't even know where the heck that flag came from in that picture, where it's like the flag hanging over her head. But the most iconic picture seriously, and since World War II at least.
It's amazing. I was talking to someone on the phone the other day about that picture, and my personal theory is just that everybody has a high quality camera in their pocket now, like everybody. So now when someone tries to shoot the president, 10,000 phones come out and shoot 50 pictures, right? Mm-hmm. So somebody grabs that iconic shot. Like it happens. Before, you would have to either like have the shot framed out and just be really fortunate on timing. Like so much had to go right to get that in the moment picture. But now a candid shot, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of them. You have to, like, if you could picture the collage of post-Trump shooting cell phone pictures that had to be taken in that moment, or professional camera pictures, because everything is set up. And a lot of them might just have been rolling video, and you grab like a 4K frame from a video and it's going to look amazing still. So right. Like just the readiness of the populace to grab that picture makes it more likely for it to happen. But it's still, it's visceral. When you look at that picture, he's sitting up there and you're like got blood all over him and you're like, yes, yeah, it's awesome. Like, yeah. That guy's kicking ass. I mean, he's getting shots. He's not really kicking ass, but that's what you get the feeling of, is that he's ready to kick ass now and you want to help him. And Kamala has no leadership quality to her. There's nothing to me where Kamala Harris stands up and speaks and says, you know what? I actually think she can lead us somewhere. I haven't seen anything from it. I get no oomph or gusto from her speeches. I get nothing about it at all from her. No feeling for it. And that's like ignoring her policies, which I obviously hate, basically all of them, since she's a communist. But it's like, where is any of the presence to be the leader of the free world? That's what we used to call the president anyway. And
that's a problem that most Democrats are going to have. Obama was unique in that he had natural charisma, which could basically help hide the fluff. But one of the things that I keep talking about when I'm focusing on like different movements that we see today, like I spent a lot of time talking about the BLM movement, and when you talk about something that's a movement, and we've looked at movements through history, they have an agenda that there's a problem, this is the remedy to that problem, and we're going to be fighting for this specific remedy. And that's what makes something a movement. You're moving from this position to that position. That's hence the name. As opposed to when BLM came around, it's like we're just angry about injustice. Well, how do you fix that? Well, there's a million different ways, but we don't all agree about what they are. And some of us think it's this and some of us think it's that. And we're going to make an official statement that this is a whole bunch of stuff that we want. But even once you give us that, everyone recognizes that's not actually justice. You can still claim there's injustice at that point. So there's no end in sight. There's no objective. You know, when you had the suffragettes with women that in 100 years ago, they had an agenda. They weren't able to vote. Will be done when we get the right to vote. I mean, it's a very clear and easily definable thing. When you don't have an actual movement like that, you have a mob, you have a riot, you have chaos, and nothing ends up getting accomplished. And it's the same thing with a leader. A leader has to have a direction and say, look, this is what I identify as the problem. This is what I think the remedy is. Here are the steps needed to get there. And I'm going to lay this out irrespective of what you think about that, because this is what needs to happen, needs to get done. And if you're on board and a bunch of people want to get behind me and support me, great. And if they disagree with me, then I'm not the right leader for them. And not every leader is perfect for their particular time and situation. A leader has to be someone who's willing to say, you know what, this is what I had as a vision. This is how I plan on actually realistically getting to the objective. And if people are happy to support that and agree with me, great, I'm going to march forward with this. And if I don't have enough support for it, well, in that case, I'm not the right person. If everyone wants something else, the democracy says that I'm not the right leader for you. That's what actual leadership is. Kamala Harris and most of the Democrats, and frankly, most of the uniparty people, are looking at polls and they look over their shoulder like, what do the masses want me to do? What do they want me to do? What do they think is right? And whatever they think is popular, that's what I now believe. That is not a leader. That is just somebody standing in front of a pack of people saying I'm their representative, but they're not actually a leader. They're just someone who managed to slogan their way into getting a position of power, usually for their own personal benefit, with zero interest as to what actually ultimately gets accomplished. And that's the opposite of leadership.
Yeah, they're a thermostat.
Yeah.
They're just sitting there taking the temperature like, aha, this is the temperature now. It's like, well, that doesn't help. No, that's a big difference between Trump and any of these people is whatever people think about it, the MAGA movement has this concept of it. No, we want to go back to some of these values. And the crazy thing about it is the values are not explicitly Republican values. They're populist values. It's something Barnes talks a lot about is Trump's a populist. And so it's like going back to this concept of having a thriving blue collar middle class. Something that a lot of Americans hold on to dearly because they take a lot of pride in the work that they do. And that's always been popular with Republicans, but there's been clashes with the middle class and the Republican leadership. Trump is barreling right through that and saying like, no, we're going to do that. We're going to do this. We're going to bring these people in. These are the good people of America. They're just trying to live. They've got good values. And like, that's the movement that you're talking about. And that's where combining that with charisma, which obviously Trump has demonstrated charisma in droves for decades. And so combining the charisma and the movement is what makes a leader. Now, will it carry him through any fuckery that they try and pull at the election time? Will it be enough to overcome his boisterousness and his sometimes crass attitude? That's always the question. Are the negatives there enough to motivate the other side and to demotivate your own base? I think the assassination attempt eliminated a lot of that on the Republican side. I think they're going to be really geared up and fired up to vote for him, especially if he just keeps the energy up and keeps the positivity up and say, we're not going to lay down, we're going to fight for this. We're not going to let them bully us into this. We're not going to let them anoint Kamala Harris as he can even go after that because it really was an anointing immediately. The upper echelons of the Democrat Party are like, oh, we all endorse Kamala Harris. Well, that was kind of fast.
With one notable exception, though. One notable exception is Barack Obama supposedly has not endorsed her. And yeah, the New York Post was reporting a few hours ago that he's annoyed that she's grabbed the mantle, and he was thinking it would be that astronaut dude from Arizona. The senator, I think Mark something, whatever, but is a forgettable last name. But that it would be the astronaut who they would push forward, and he was really ticked off about it. I think the Democrats were like, "How the hell are we going to kick the black woman to the side?" Like they were like, "How can we do that? We're going to alienate our entire base. We need black women to come out and vote if we're going to have any chance of winning. And the only one we're never going to have that unless we give this woman her shot." So it's ironic that their DEI policies locked her into this DEI hire. I mean, the reason she got the job as vice president was because she was a minority woman. And the reason that they're stuck with her is because she's a minority woman. I mean, this is classic DEI eating itself up.
Could you the HR complaint of bypassing Kamala Harris? Gretchen Whitmer having to sit in front of some like rainbow-haired idiot. It's like 250 pounds overweight. Now, why did you endorse Kamala Harris? Like, God. One, because I don't know which gender you're trying to be. Let me read a couple of these super chats, and we can kind of we can keep going here. Jim Tells You says, shout out, sub to my channel for all the latest conspiracy theory coverage. That's Jim Tells You on YouTube, guys. Check him out. Reformed Convict says, tunnel number 77 is finished, Joe. Open for smuggling, sir. I think they're talking about your microphone.
Yeah, my microphone sucks.
Lord of the Kino says, tell the cheap, and it's got a Star of David there, to fix his dog shit microphone. That was in emojis.
Thank you.
And then he says, hi, April. Reformed Convict number 13 says, tracksuits are great for heat allergies, rackets. Ask Joe. He has the hookup. The camo is mine, though. Free Kool-Aid on all in-tunnel pickups of tracksuits. Tracksuits are not good for heat allergies. That's not true.
Tracksuits are great for everything. Tracksuits are great for everything. I don't know what you're talking about. Dude, not required, highly recommended tracksuits.
My heat allergy has been kicking off just from standing around. I hate it. Allegan News says Joe Biden will resign within a month, so we have the first woman POTUS to give her a boost. So the incumbency, do you think there's value in the incumbency for like Joe stepping down, having Kamala Harris take over this close to the election time? I don't think so.
I don't think Joe Biden has enough interest in Kamala winning that he would do that. I don't think he's going to curtail his administration by 10 seconds. He came across as being, if you saw him tonight, he's like, I'm stepping aside because that's what my party wants me to do. But that's not someone, and here's my vision, for what I'm going to do in the next 6 months. Even more great stuff than what we did the first 3.5 years. But he, I think that people who believe that Joe Biden is going to take it on the chin to help Kamala out are not realizing that he's not happy that this happened. And the last thing he's going to do is say, oh, sure, I'll just give up the last 4 months of my administration so that she can have some chance of not getting blown out in the election. I can't imagine that he's going to go along with that. They never liked each other, supposedly, either. I mean, it's not like there's a closeness between them.
Neither of them are likable.
Yeah.
Like, neither of them. Even Joe Biden might have been likable at some point.
Yeah.
But now he comes across as a bitter old man who's confused against his own convictions. I mean, because look, let's just put it down there. Joe was a horrifically racist guy. And he had a very specific, classic 80s Democrat sort of agenda. And he didn't change from that, which is kind of, I think, what that part of him is what brought him into the candidacy now, is that he was kind of a moderate Democrat in that sort of way, where he could have some of those quote unquote conservative values, not all of them, but I mean, he's Catholic. He's got some semblance of his religion that he sticks around with. And again, he's got sort of that, I'm from Scranton, Pennsylvania. I'm from the working Northeast. It's like, well, sure, 40 years working in Capitol Hill, but he had that sort of gimmick to him. Like, it was like a Trump diet.
Yeah.
But the whole thing is like, but he was also terrible, and he had to not be terrible. Like, he had to try and curtail all that, like Robert Byrd did. It's like, well, I used to hang these guys, but they're cool. Now I hang out with black people. It's like, oh, God. Like, why are
people still around you?
Yeah. And it's like, well, they can't.
But that's why he gaslights and literally will make stuff up. He's like, oh, yeah, I was working on an oil rig back in 67.
Back before they were invented.
Yeah, it's like, oh, my God. That's so not true. None of what he's saying is true at all.
It doesn't surprise me that they weren't close. And I think people underestimate personal pride and legacy, especially for a career politician. I mean, Joe Biden was a senator for so fucking long. They had to learn how to add vowels to the word senator to like spell it correctly when the new language came out. And he caps it off by winning the presidency. Ignore everything else that you know. Someone has pinnacled their career. They've queened every pawn in the chess game and become president after a lifetime of politics. I mean, Trump's like, well, I ran a couple businesses, you know, and then I became president. Very good. But he didn't, his career was not becoming president. Becoming president was a later thing. For Joe, it was this long, arduous step up to the presidency. He gets there. Do you think he wants to cut off the last couple months of his legacy and be the one president who stepped down so Kamala would have a chance to win? That's not how legacies imprint in people's minds. They go, no, she can win on her own fucking merits. Like, let me cap off my administration by implementing these things that I wanted to do. Now, he may not get them done, but he's at least going to try, and he's going to put forth that he finished out his term and that he wisely stepped down for the good of the country because of his failing health will be what his public, you know, sort of image will be. But inside he'll be like, man, if I have to step down for that stupid bitch, like he would hate it. It would completely, someone would take a shit right on the top of his Sunday.
I mean, supposedly the reason that he stepped down, we know that this is what we know. We know Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer wanted him to step down. We know that. And supposedly, I don't know if you follow that guy Muse on X, but he brought a report which was claiming that they threatened that you either step down or we're going to 25th Amendment you. And basically we're going to end your career in disgrace.
After the debate performance, they had every grounds to 25th Amendment him. No one would have complained. I mean, some people no one would have had a reasonable complaint to say, look, no, he was clearly sharp as a fucking tack at that debate. No, I mean, the guy's mental acumen is fading fast in front of the whole country.
Yeah, but think about this. So if either it's warranted now or it's not, and if they're using it to blackmail him, that is actually a horrific abuse of our political system. I mean, either they believe it, in which case, why the hell are they not doing it today? And they should have done it irrespective of what he does or what decision he makes about running for re-election, or they don't believe it, in which case they're completely abusing process and terribly evil, corrupt people for what they're doing because they're afraid he can't win the election. I mean, this is it's so gross and disturbing how DC operates. It's very aggravating to hear some of these stories. But do you question? I mean, if you had to gun to your head right now that you heard about this theory, gun to your head, you think it's more likely or less likely that did or did not happen?
100%. Yeah, I have no doubt that Joe Biden was facing down a 25th Amendment challenge. And,
if he really wants to screw the Democrats, by the way, you know how he could really screw the Democrats? In October, announced that he's pardoning Hunter and just get everyone mad at the Democrats. If he's really pissed at them,
he really should. He should just pardon Hunter now.
But you do it in October when it's like fresh in everyone's mind. Like here's the Democrats pardoning their own son. Here you go, Kamala. Go run now. Actually,
there's a really good reason for the Democrat platform to pardon Hunter Biden, and that's 18 USC 922G subdivision 3. That's what Hunter's charged with, possession of firearms as a user or addict of a controlled substance, right?
Being a violation of New York Rifle versus Bruin.
Right. So Hunter has raised that challenge, and I believe it's slated to get to the Supreme Court. I mean, who knows when? But
wouldn't that be amazing, by the way? Wouldn't that be
amazing?
Hunter
Biden being the guy who wins the Second Amendment challenge that knocks out 922G would be great.
If that becomes the Biden legacy, that they help expand gun rights.
Hashtag free Hunter. I hope they.
That'd be so amazing.
That's a policy reason to pardon Hunter Biden of federal crimes, though, right? Like, because if they do that, they moot his case, and then they have to wait for the next case to come through, and that's got a decent fact set for overturning 18 USC 922G.
Well, I'm positive he's going to pardon him for everything he did with Ukraine, everything he did with the Russian mayor and anything he did in China, I'm sure he's going to just give him a blanket pardon for everything, and it'll be a pocket pardon, which will basically flash anytime he's in danger. But that's why I was saying announcing it publicly would be an FU to the Democrats.
Yeah,
but,
and he should do that.
Yeah, I'm hoping he does. Oh my God, that'd be amazing.
Funny. It would be funny. I'm all for. I like the idea of political chaos. But I want to touch on something that you were just talking about. You were talking about how like gross Washington D.C. is and how it operates. But I think what is scary is when people are exposed to government, they find out that it's not Washington D.C. that is like this. They find that it's every level of government. You have what the principles and the ideals that government is supposed to operate on, right? We have this concept that like, oh yeah, anybody can run for president and become president. Sure. But not really though. Like the amount of effort and notoriety that has to go into this thing, choices have to be made often when people are very young to get them into a position to even have a prayer of running for president. I mean, you look at like, oh yeah, Biden or Obama, this miracle thing. It's like, well, he was politically connected basically from college on to all of the right power brokers to get into this shady election in Chicago to come into the Senate and then to be groomed into the presidency right after that. And it's like, that wasn't just an American success story. That is this carefully picked and planned path that started with his mother being connected to like high level communist politicians in the 60s. And so like it goes there and he's mentored and he's raised in a certain way and through these certain schools, and he goes to Columbia and he goes to Harvard. It's like he doesn't have a normal life path. Trump is aberrant, but Joe Biden, same thing. Like you're not just winning the presidency, but it goes all the way down to local levels. When you start getting into government, when you start looking at either the principles that government is supposed to follow or the rights that you're supposed to have, you find out when you encounter government that none of it works on the ideal and everything works on the practical, and the practical is disgusting and it's ugly and it involves some level of scandal. It involves a lot of personal feelings and pride of these small power brokers, all the way up to large power brokers, as we see in the Democrat Party. I mean, the fact that Whitmer immediately came out and she's like, no, I'm turning down the vice presidential nomination that Kamala hadn't extended to her. Like that's a power play by Gretchen Whitmer. And it's a really weird one to look at. But when you just strip it down to what it is, that is a gross level of narcissism to say you should be putting me as VP. I should be a viable VP candidate, but I'm not even going to accept your VP candidacy that's not offered. But you mentioned if you're Whitmer or you're Newsom, like, do you want to be shackled to the yoke of Kamala Harris or actually shackled to the yoke of a leaving Biden? And of course, her answer straight out the gate was no, I don't even want to be your VP. Keep me away from this impending disaster of a race. And it's like, that's not how this is supposed to work. If you think you're the best candidate for the job, you should be putting your foot forward. And she was intentionally staying back from it.
Yeah. And because at the end of the day, I mean, politics is politics. I mean, that's essentially it. I mean, she's basically shrewd enough. If you're a player at that level, you develop a certain acumen as far as understanding where your spot is. So, you know, she's not a Whitmer or a Newsom as detestable individuals they are, judging them as humans. You can't ignore the strengths that they have as far as being political animals and understanding how politics works and making sure that they're going to coach themselves to put themselves in the best position to win. A good manager, a good coach is someone who puts his positions in a player that they're likely to succeed. And a good politician understands, this is my moment, this is not. This is how this will play or is likely to play over the next several months or several years. And if I can basically look into 2028 and hope that 2028 is a disastrous year for whoever's in the White House, that will be my opportunity for me to come in there and play my hand. Because especially if I don't think that this albatross called Kamala Harris is gonna be a road to success. So
Yeah, it's oh man, this has been, I don't know.
Did you like his Vance pick? Did you like that?
I don't know anything about JD Vance at all.
All right, that's an honest answer.
What I like about him, though, is that I saw a tweet or something that said JD Vance doesn't help Trump because the right already had the right-wing edgelord demographic locked down. I was like, oh, okay, I like this guy even more now.
Yeah.
Like, if that's how you're categorizing him, like, okay, good. But I don't really know anything about him. I haven't been following. I never claimed to be like this heavy into politics guy. I'm interested in them for sure. And I like the ideas about power, and I like the ideas about like charisma and influence, but I don't know the players very well. So I'm interested to get to know him and learn more about him, but I don't have any problem with the pick. I mean, he could have picked a terrible candidate. Like,
there were a lot of terrible candidates who he managed to not pick. I mean, a lot of people don't like Vance.
Like me, he should have not picked me. I actually turned it down before he announced.
Oh, you had the same hubris as Whitmer. You're like, no, I'm sorry, Donald. I'm not going to ride shotgun with you. No, you caught the pun. So here's the breakdown on Vance for you. Okay, if you're looking for what the role of a vice president is. Because let's face it, they're not really helping the president effectuate their policies. So
vice presidents are hilariously useless when you actually like look at the Constitution and go, what does this person do? And you go, nothing.
Right.
They're literally they're nothing. They're
literally nothing. Yeah, there's no duties assigned to them. They literally and he could stay in Ohio if he wanted and just hang out there for for 3 years and 11 months and just come to Washington when the mood strikes him. But if you look at the vice president, there's a few different ways you can look at it. You can look at it as one, enhancing the ticket. So is this enhancing the ticket as far as getting him new voters? No, it's not. But if you're Trump and you think that, hey, half the world wants to take me out, and I take a guy who's more MAGA than I am, they're less likely to take me out, because the same way Biden had Kamala as life insurance, then like as much as people hated Biden, it's like, oh my God, thank God he's still breathing. We don't have President Harris. Right. So too Vance helps serve that role. If you also look at the vice president as someone who's like, let's say the future, the heir apparent. So in that case, he's not a bad choice. If you look at the role of the vice president as someone who's going to be loyal, and given what happened with Mike Pence being such a disaster on January 6th and such a traitor ever since that day to basically everything about American values. So I can understand that a lot of people who identify as being MAGA or Trump supporters felt that it was imperative for him to find someone who's a loyalist. And given his history, Vance is certainly anything but a loyalist. I mean, the guy was saying some pretty awful things about Trump 7 years ago when he was first running, and saying really terrible things that made him sound like a lefty. Yeah, so if you're looking for that, you're going to be afraid of Vance as a pick. But the reason I'm not afraid of that is because I look at like what way, assuming that he is sincere about his ideals and really hates Trump, and that he's being a politician and truly kissing his ass in order because he wants to be the vice president. Let's assume that that's the downside of a JD Vance. Okay, how is he going to be in a position to actually harm Trump? Unless you think he's going to literally, bury him in the ground. How is he in a position to politically harm him? Assuming that he actually cares about the same American ideals you and I care about. I think that he's actually a pretty safe pick, and having him, and frankly, a lot of people wanted Vivek. And honestly, I'm hoping that Vivek, I would love to see him as chief of staff, because I think that Vivek Ramaswamy.
Oh, I see. I always it's because I played Morrowind. Don't worry about it. Vivek is how I always see it, as Vivek.
Oh,
Is
I
Vivek?
only know that because that's how he introduces himself. So,
I don't listen to him.
Yeah, right. Well, you should. He's an enjoyable listen.
Yeah, I'm just kidding.
He actually can walk you through. One of the things I like about Vivek, and I liked him as a potential candidate, what second to Trump was the fact that he has actually figured out how to game the politics of DC and say, okay, here are the powers the president has. Here's the limitations if he needs to rely on actual legislation. Here are policies that a president can implement without any sanction from Congress whatsoever. And step by step, he identifies problems with big pharma. He identifies different policy issues with how do we deal with Taiwan and how do we step this up and how do we address the situation, growing tensions with China. And he has very clear, identifiable answers that he can walk us through step by step. This is how we get from here to there. And that, for me, I don't want the vice president to be doing that. I want the chief of staff to actually walk Trump through how to get where we're hoping we're going to ultimately go. So in that sense, I'm really hoping that he ends up as chief of staff. To me, that would be a really important appointment because the chief of staff basically is running the White House.
Right. And the vice president really, like, again, going back to how pitifully little they actually do and what little power they have, remembering that the vice president originally was derived as the loser of the presidential race. So is often an opponent. You didn't want to give them power. You wanted them to just kind of be there to take over if they needed to be, as like the next in line as the next most popular political person in the country. That was the purpose of the vice president. Now, they eventually realized, like, wait, we could just kill off the one guy and get our guy in office. It's not the greatest thing. So they changed they changed how that worked out, but they didn't want to give him a lot of responsibilities and activities. They didn't need him to have power. He's not an officer under the, under Article 2, because he'd not supposed to do anything unless something occurs. Unless the president is incapacitated, he steps in momentarily till the president is brought back. Or if the president, of course, is unable to continue his duties, he then carries on through succession. But they didn't want that. And so, yeah, I think the main thing with the vice presidential pick is, one, you have your insurance policy. Do we want this guy? Like, is there someone worse behind this guy? And then two, like, is this guy going to hurt the chances of the main candidate? And really, people need to calm down and go, no, no, he's not going to do much at all unless Trump dies. Like, then you have to weigh it out. And if what you get is, like you said, a more MAGA version of Trump, then that's not the worst thing. You've got just another populist who's going to carry the torch further down the road. And that's, and he's a guy who has a little credibility, because my understanding is he used to be very anti-Trump.
Yeah, he was. And that's why I said he's not. The people who look at MAGA as being Trump and being a Trump loyalist, they're very upset about this pick and they don't trust him. And that's why I was saying, what are you worrying about? Like, what is he, unless you're afraid that he's going to he's not going to miss. So what are you worried he's going to do? He's not in any sort of position to have any influence on Trump's presidency. Trump could literally shelf him to the side if he's so inclined and say, you're doing nothing. And you just go sit in the Senate, and where he's the president, he's technically the president of the Senate, and preside there and sit around and wait till 2028. But what I like about this is now we have an opportunity to sort of watch these people who have been trying to get the attention of populists. I mean, populism is clearly on the rise on both the left and the right. And now we will begin 4 years where we'll be able to actually watch them. Hopefully, God's help, Trump destroys Kamala in the election. And we'll have 4 years of being able to monitor their work and their policies and their statements and where they come from and how viable they are to be the heir apparent and who should be fulfilling that role. And I think that this is the greatest time to be doing what we're doing right here as we're coming up to election season. But I'm really looking forward to being able to just enjoy watching the rise of populism and seeing the different figures basically jostle for the attention of and earn our devotion by expressing themselves and helping implement ideas that are consistent with foundational American values.
Yeah, and I think there's one other thing I wanted to to say into that? Oh yeah, just the rise of populism on the left and the right. I mean, that should just be an alarming wake up call to what I've referred to as the new aristocracy of the American government. I mean, people are tired of being governed, and it's crazy to see the disconnect between the governors and the governed on these policies. When we get to the grand policies of left versus right, sure, you get some uniformity of like, well, okay, well, Democrats are kind of like pro-choice or whatever. Republicans are pro-life. Like you have those things. But when you get into the difference being populism, you look at right now this, I was reading an article today about the Democrats are trying to re-cement Chevron in by law. They want to pass laws in the House and Senate to bring Chevron deference back after the Supreme Court said, no, we don't want this. And they're like, well, look, we just want really efficient governing of the people. And actually, when we bring it back, it'll be even easier to regulate because they could get rid of those pesky public comment periods that we used to have under Chevron. Because if people don't know, to do a rule change at a regulatory body, they could do it. But there was this public comment period, which made it an expensive and long process for the government body. And a whole bunch of people could contribute these, publicly accessible documents, say why this rule change is good or bad. Well, now they want to just pass a law to say, we don't want any of that. We want the regulatory bodies to have that rulemaking authority, to have the ability to change definitions on the American people. And we want to get rid of that public comment section. So no one has the ability to publicly read all of the reasons we shouldn't do this. And you go, they have no concept of how much people are tired of being governed in this way. How much people are tired of going to work and having another list of regulations, another 6 hours of training on the job they've been doing for 15 years. They now have to do it this other way because some pipsqueak in Ohio who sits behind a desk all day tells them that they're climbing a ladder wrong. Like they don't have any concept of how just annoying it is to go to work and find out that you've been doing it wrong, even though you've done it your whole life.
But here's the really interesting thing about Congress trying to take that stance, because the point that the Supreme Court was making was, no, this is a violation of separation of powers. And these things are supposed to be legislated by Congress, not decided by the executive branch. Right. And Congress has to actually write this stuff out. And normally, people in D.C. want as much power as possible. You would think that they would be taking the exact opposite stance. You would think that they should be saying, hey, let us be the deciders as to how things are going to operate, and not let some bureaucrat who's the head of DHS or the head of the IRS or the head of EPA or the SEC making all these decisions, that these decisions should come back to us. And instead, they're like, no. We don't have to fight about that language. Let them. It's like we don't need to deal with that. Let some other bureaucrat decide how to interpret our words. And it's such a backward thing from what you would expect from the DC power hungry. But it's not when you realize that they're power hungry and yet lazy. They're power hungry and don't want to have to do the work of actually legislating. So we want to be recognized as being the walking gods of America, who have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people voting for us and supporting us and being able to get up there and stand up. But we definitely don't want to have to be doing all the work that's associated with actually legislating in a way that's comprehensible. It's so gross.
There's that, and there's another aspect to it, I believe. And that is so the way government is structured in our Constitution is it's a tiered system of time, power, and influence. And that time, power, and influence is determinable by the length of the term, the amount of terms that you get, where the election comes from. So you look at the House of Representatives as the most immediate indicator of where political will is. They get 2 years. They're elected directly by the people at the closest levels that we have of government at the federal level. Then you go to the presidency, which is a 4-year term and has a massive amount of political will because it's just one guy. So they got to win about half the country, maybe more, to have this. But it's 4 years and then maybe another 4 years. So you get 8. Senators have a 6-year term. They're elected just 2 per state. So there's a very sort of select class of them. They kind of entrench themselves in the Senate and they hang around for a very long time. They have an unlimited amount of terms. They're a longer sort of ballast of political will than either the House of Representatives or the presidency. And then you get to the Supreme Court, unelected lifetime appointments, and they're sort of the full on balance board for the rest of the country. The country moves too far in one direction. The Supreme Court says, nope, we have a founding document that says you can't do that. That's the kind of the theory for it. What was not accounted for in the Constitution originally was this unelected fourth branch of government, the administrative state, which is supposed to exist under the presidency. But we all know that the presidency doesn't actually have control of the administrative state in the way that we would think they do. Trump wanted to run the country like the CEO. And if Trump were CEO, he could just fire all these idiots in all these different departments, and then he could replace them however he wants. But it doesn't work that way because we've got government involved. So if you want to fire these people, it becomes an arduous process. So what Congress knows is that by having something like Chevron in, their policies on things like climate change, their policies on gun control, these things have longevity long past their initial political will because they're entrenched in these little bureaucrats that are easy to put in and install. They can be completely ideological, and that ideology never has to change with the public because they're unelected, and they get really, really hard to remove, and they get really, really powerful. So when you're looking at 100-year plan of progressivism or like Democrat policy, for example, instilling people at high levels in the administrative departments is way more valuable than winning House of Representative members in fucking New Hampshire. Like the House of Representatives guy in New Hampshire isn't going to do you any good. But the one guy you put at the head of the Department of Education or as a Secretary General of like some other department, that person's going to stick around forever and keep implementing your policies. And as long as Chevron is there, the rulemaking goes in and that updates with the political will of the Democrat Party way faster than any lawmakers can do it. That's why they want it in there, because their overall sort of perspective on governance and control is a power game that is way longer than Republicans ever have been, in my opinion.
It's an interesting thought. I need like 5 minutes. Can you want to go through super chats and I'll be back in like 5 minutes or so?
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, brother.
And Joe has left us. Just like Joe Biden, Joe has stepped down. We'll see if he makes it back. We're going to read some more of the super chats here. We've got Allegan News says article of the flip was Time Magazine the same one that bragged about the shadow campaign in 2020? Yes, it was. Yeah, it's good stuff. Check it out. I mean, it's good if you think of it as, well, these people are just confessing what they're doing out in the open. And they have been since 2020. They're like, yeah, we took the election through the media. And we just took it. We censored stories. We put a bunch of money in to keep fake news out and to moderate, what was allowable on places like Twitter and Facebook. And you're like, they're just saying it. They're just saying it out in the open. At the time, the amazing thing was covering that Time article in 2021, when the Time article said, like, we stole the election, I did a video on it and talked about it. And I was like, do I even put this on YouTube? Because at that moment, it's like, if I said this prior to Time saying this, they could kick your channel off of fucking YouTube saying, oh, no, you're lying about elections. I was like, no, they're saying it. They're saying it right here. And you're like, how are they so brazen? And nobody cared. Nobody cared that it was a small group of people talking about how specifically they use money, power, and influence in very specific ways to engineer the result in 2020. Now, some people will talk about like voting machines and all that stuff. That's not what these guys were talking about. These guys were talking about literally controlling the media narrative and how information was spoon-fed to the public in a way that would almost guarantee the election of a Democrat in 2020. It was crazy. Tracy Collins says, please tell me you've seen Kamala's speechwriter video from the Babylon Bee. It's a 6-year-old video and such a good laugh. No, I've not. Or wait, is it a 6-year-old video or a 6-year-old writes her speeches? I don't know. I'm going to guess it's both. Natclo 2.0 says, Joe looks just like Joe Matarisi, who's a comedian. Cool. I don't know who that is, but I believe you. Debbie Tom says, sending aloha and prayers your way, Nick. Hey, thank you. Are you and Joe worried Kamala will win because people will vote because she's a woman? I'm really worried she'll get the DEI vote and win. I'm not. I don't actually have faith in America to have faith in woman as a concept so much to vote Kamala Harris into office. I do think if it were a different woman that she might have a chance to do that might be enough to kind of tip her over the edge. I don't think Kamala Harris is the right candidate for that, but that's my personal opinion. Bestimate says, not even women vote for women. Yeah, that's the problem. There's going to be a bunch of husbands whose wives told them to vote for Kamala Harris, but the wives won't. That's going to be your downfall. She's going to lose the women vote. Anthony Simon says, the camera was a Sony A1 full frame, shutter speed 1/8000th, shooting HD video at 30 frames per second. Well, there you go. Fantastic. So it's shooting HD video 30 frames per second. So as that, as that shot happens, they've got a beautiful, strong, like an A1 full frame. That's a nice camera. And I don't know what lens they have on it, but yeah, if they're shooting HD video, they can pull any of those 30 frames in that moment and grab it. So they have a lot of opportunity there. Allegan News says Obama was craving Big Mike would be installed. Gross. He's probably like, no, don't put Big Mike in. She'll hit me again. CHP is 0 says, yeah, but if the outlook is we know we're going to lose, why the hell are the whales chipping in millions? Political donations are not always for the purpose of winning an election. And that's something to always kind of consider in the back of your mind. What is the ulterior purpose of a political donation that comes in? If someone is donating millions of dollars to a campaign, for example, are they really concerned with that person getting elected, or is that $1 million a signal towards something else? Is that $1 million a signal to the party? Is that buying access? Is that buying sort of an idea of a promise of legislation? Or is that putting their name in front of the class so that the next time something comes up involving them, they know where their bread is buttered, so to speak? I would say that it's not going to matter when you get to the levels of wealth where you're donating millions of dollars because you're a billionaire, for example. The $1 million donation is a business expense that is not having a personal impact in a negative way on you so much as it has a potential upside that it's just worth it. And whether the election is a victory or not becomes pretty irrelevant, because that those $1 million contributions become noticed and reverberate throughout the party for the donators. Believe me, the political parties know who's donating, and those donations, I mean, they don't have to be giant for the news of who's donating to get out there. Even if someone's donating 10, 15, 20 grand to candidates in local races, those names are going to get found, because if they're donating 10 grand to one candidate, they probably got another $2, $3, $4, $5, $10,000 to donate to some other candidates as well. If you start getting up into the millions, if you're putting $1 million towards a campaign, $1 million towards a super PAC or whatever, the idea that you've got probably hundreds of thousands to millions more dollars to donate becomes pretty clear. Most people are not donating that deep into their own wallet that the million's going to sink them, so they become a target. And that becomes beneficial for them in a lot of ways. Again, buying access is one of the most important things in politics. It's one of the most important things in business. How do you get your dumbass in front of the other important people? There's a lot of ways to do it. Most of you know this at a very basic level. Think about your last job hunt that was successful. When you finally got through all of the miasma and you finally put you in a chair across from the person who's going to hire you. And you knew the whole time, not all of you, some of you are playing with trains or whatever, but Many of you knew the whole time, if you could just get in a chair and say, look, I know this job. I know this industry. I've been doing it this way. I know how to adapt my skill set to this. I'm a really good learner. I'm a really good worker. I've got all these accolades I can tell you about. They don't really translate on paper, but if you could just sit down and talk to me, I'd sit back and figure out what you're looking for and tell you why I'm the right guy. Many of you know that. How much would you pay to put your ass in the chair rather than having to like get luckily picked out of 200 applications? You spend $500 to get that interview. Would you do it? If the job was going to pay 100 grand, 150, 200 grand, is that $500 go up to 1,000 at some point? What, like, at some point in your job search, if you can scrounge up that money to put you in the chair, you're going to do it. And it's the same with political donations. It puts your name across the plate of the people eating. So that's just my opinion on that. BS Unfortunate Initials says, if the election is rigged, Harris is the one that has to start the investigation. Well, yeah, the government investigates itself in all matters. And they typically find that they did nothing wrong. And especially if it benefits them. Allegan News says, Joe is a moderate Democrat, only slightly racist. Tracy Collins says, and Vance used to be anti-Trump. Deus Ex Machina Prime says, nice to see you guys. You will always be our white rigger. Oh, that's good. I like that. I don't know what other color of rigger I could be, but I'll stick with the white one. Allegan News says, Gretchen, when she finally runs for POTUS, she will look like Nancy Pelosi, saggy big top on beach. I hate everything about that sentence. I hate literally everything you chatted in that. Gretchen Whitmer running for the presidency. I hate that. Looking like Nancy Pelosi. I hate that. And then you said saggy big top on beach, which makes it worse. Like, I was already picturing Nancy Pelosi going, and then you're like saggy big top. And I'm like, oh God, ew. It's like two tether balls just dangling around her knees. Ugh. Dark Horse Productions, welcome to Paralegal. Thank you. JS says, the ruling versus governing is over the top. Thin the government size. Well, yes. We do need to do that. And to do that, we need, first of all, Chevron needed to be eliminated. Next, these administrative bodies need to be cored out. They need to be gutted of power. They need to be gutted of staff and funding. And we need to start phasing them back out and make Congress do their damn jobs. Congress doesn't, one of the things Joe was hinting at, or not hinting at, but hitting on, was this idea that, Congress is lazy. And I'm going to take mild umbrage with that. I don't think it's that they're lazy. I think it's that they're frugal with their political capital. And if they can get other people to put their asses on the line while they get to maintain their power, they can have policy changes that come from the administrative body rather than them having to put a yes-no vote in Congress, something that can be weighed out at the next election. If they're generally supportive of, for example, initiatives to combat climate change, they don't actually have to have a yes-no vote that shuts down a factory that loses a bunch of jobs. They can support jobs and support a healthier climate at the same time, whatever bullshit they want to do. Because an administrative body reclassified a chemical, whatchamacallit? What's the word I'm looking for? A chemical byproduct of a process. It reclassifies it as some type of waste that is otherwise regulated. So now they're saying, well, this is now a byproduct and it has to be regulated in the same way. And that ends up shutting down a factory that's been operating forever. That loses 200 jobs. And those 200 jobs are just magically gone by the stroke of a pen of an administrator. Not because a congressman voted and said that this chemical byproduct of the process is now illegal. That's what it's supposed to be. But we don't have to do that with the Clean Air and Water Act and Chevron. And that's where all of this kind of stems from, is this ability to have a definitional change that has the impact of law on it without congressional approval. But that means without congressional political capital expenditure, which means that they don't They don't put their ass on the line for anything anymore. What do you guys even know what the average congressman is voting on anymore? I don't. It's hard to follow because it's nonsensical. They don't, all of the meaningful changes that happen in your day-to-day life don't happen at the high level of this. They pass these broad sweeping things. Most of the bills that they're passing now are funding bills, just keeping the fucking government going and the debt flowing. They're not sitting there actually like intelligibly passing laws that are helping you figure out what you're doing with your life. That's gone. They don't have any skin in the game. They're just a power broker. Speaking of power brokers, welcome back, Joe.
Nice transition. I like
it. Well, it's better than the other transition I was thinking of.
Yeah. Wait.
How did your mic get worse?
Did it really? Oh God. How did that happen?
Joe, do you know how to use like mic settings on StreamYard?
No. It's literally I'm like the Wilson, I'm like the Beach Boys' father, where they give me like this fake soundboard and I'm playing with buttons. That's basically what I am. Like, yeah, Dad. No, I think we need a little more gain. Yeah, okay. Run it back again. Oh, Jesus, Dad.
A little more gay? This is the Beach Boys. They were just here. I missed them. Not that I wasn't going to go to the Beach Boys, but I saw an article. They were just like an hour away from my house. They were playing, and I didn't care about that. But John Stamos was playing with the Beach Boys. I was like, well, that I would want to see. Like, I don't care about watching the Beach Boys, but watching John Stamos play with the Beach Boys would be fun. I think that
they were very innovative. You have to give credit, whether you like their music or not. I mean, for their age, they were very innovative, coming up with different instruments to use as part of a song. I mean, Good Vibrations was like a very artistic song, almost illegal.
I gotta ask, have you ever seen the movie Top Secret? It's one of those parody movies.
Yeah. It's like a Leslie Nielsen movie, right?
Well, it was Val Kilmer. Leslie Nielsen wasn't in it. Okay. Val Kilmer is the main star.
It's got a cow with boots in it, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, and it makes fun of a lot of movies. But one of the best. So Val Kilmer's character is Nick Riviera, and he's like a Beach Boys type singer and performer. And the intro to the movie has the most American song and video in it ever, and it's skeet surfing, and then all these guys are on their surfboards skeet shooting with their shotguns, like while surfing. And it's like skeet surfing is. Well, I watched it the other day and I was like, God, this is so perfectly American. Why have we not brought back skeet surfing? Oh, it's so good.
So wait, is my mic lower or is it more echoey? What way is it worse?
It's kind of like, you know, when Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, before he was waterboarded and then after he was waterboarded.
So it's weaker. So that's what you're trying to say.
It's weaker. It has hairier shoulders somehow. It looks like they fed him an entire Domino's pizza.
I hate not understanding. Like, this is like a basic thing. I feel like I'm like a baseball player who never learned to bunt. That's basically like, this is, how do you not know how to like put a mitt on? Like, what is wrong? Well, I'm really good at hitting. That's what I'm.
Yeah. Can you do this? Can you do this now?
Yeah. Well, I don't hear anything.
Oh no, I heard it through your mic there.
You hear that through my mic?
Wait, hit a little harder. Oh yeah,
that's
hit it.
What she said.
Hit it. No, I did. I hear something, but I can't tell if that's the vibration going down.
Do you hear that?
Oh no! See, that's just going down through the table and into your laptop mic.
Yeah, I know. This is like basically this is crap. It's not doing anything, right?
No, it's not even. That's not even real.
It's like I said,
that's like
freaking.
That's like pretending that Stephen Hawking was talking the whole time.
Oh my god! Yeah.
Could you imagine if Stephen Hawking's controller, like his kid, got a hold of the speak and spell instead of Stephen Hawking?
Right,
some little like 8-year-old typing up all his lines.
I'm testing stuff out, so the volumes and stuff might change on you. I'm not sure. I actually left to try and fix it. And that's why I left.
You did it worse. It was,
all right.
Just go to settings on StreamYard. and then go to your audio and make sure that your mic is the correct mic.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. You know what? I'll show you. You want me to show you what the hell I'm dealing with here? do you want me? You want me to show you what the hell I'm dealing with?
Yeah.
I'll share my screen. I don't care. All right.
Let's do it. I'm ready to fix this, Joe.
All right. Here we go. Present share screen.
And after this, you can unresign and save us from Kamala Harris.
Oh, fine.
All right. Ready for me to bring? I'm bringing it in. Here we go.
All right. So now if I go to my audio over here, they give me 3 options. Okay.
Yeah.
So here are my 3 options. Can you see it, or you don't? Because it's like going.
Yeah, they're all the exact same. That's amazing.
They're all the exact same thing, no matter which one I switch to.
Oh, but it did change.
Did it? Is it better now?
Slightly.
Okay.
Okay. No, but it didn't actually change the mic. So that mic is plugged in. You're telling me?
Yeah, I'm getting my audio pumped through it. Meaning, when I hear you, it's coming through the mic.
Yeah, I see that on your communications. Your speakers have Shure.
So nothing at all.
But you don't have the Shure mic in your up in your menu there.
Yeah, isn't that weird? I'm bouncing on different ones here. You tell me. What am I doing? Is it the echo cancellation? Should I get rid of the echo cancellation?
No, you should put that back on immediately.
Okay, fine. Reduce mic background noise.
Try it. Let's see.
Is that doing anything?
That's way better.
Okay.
Actually, yeah, that got rid of some hiss.
Okay. Automatically adjust mic volume. Is that better?
Look, it's better. It's not perfect.
It's terrible. Don't give me it's better. You got like your state-of-the-art stuff here, and I'm basically.
No, it is seriously. It is way better.
Stupid 1974 walkie-talkie kind of thing, like breaker.
Look, I know
this is awful.
You sound better now. I'm not messing with you. You sound way better right now. There is something that needs to be done.
Yeah.
To fix it. But
yeah, I like this. What needs to be done is like a 6-month course in understanding your mic settings.
I think I know how to fix it, but I don't want to do it live on air. But afterwards, I think I can show you.
All right, I'd be appreciative.
I think so, because I think it's a Windows setting. Oh no, get out. I think we showed the link on your screen. So now someone tried to jump in. It doesn't matter. Okay. Diamond G says OSHA, not a government extension anymore. Scott, where the hell did that go? Scott Vanden Heuvel says, for Chevron deference, legal thoughts on the argument. Congress didn't codify Chevron deference after the first ruling because it was already useful and understood to be part of the executive. Thank you both. My favorite fanfic ship.
Awesome.
Okay. So what do you think? Congress didn't codify Chevron deference after the first ruling because it was already useful and understood to be part of the executive. Well, they didn't need to codify it because the Supreme Court said that it existed. Yeah. I mean,
the same way they didn't bother with trying to fix the abortion. You know, the left never tried doing it because they had everything they wanted.
Right. So, there was no need for it at that point. So they didn't have to codify Chevron.
Speaking of need to codify something, I actually stumbled on something today, which is a really interesting thing, which is really in the sweet spot of conversations you and I have had in the past. So today there was all these flag burnings going on in DC.
Yeah.
And I saw someone.
Flag burnings are so controversial. Like, it's so interesting.
Well, Lee Zeldin put out there basically saying that these people should be the police should go in there and start throwing people in prison.
Police should go and start throwing themselves in prison.
So now to be fair, I want to be fair. That's the part of the tweet that I read. I kind of missed where he referenced vandalism. And vandalism, I think, and defacing monuments, I think that merits being thrown in prison. But I made the argument, and I got ratioed for the first time ever on X by making the argument that this is free speech. And it's gross, and these people are disgusting, but sometimes you need to let a donkey bray so that everyone can see that he's a jackass. And that's why we can't criminalize this sort of thing. And I got a lot of pushback on it. And yeah, obviously seeing the American flag burn is is something that makes you want to go punch a lot of people, and they deserve to be punched in the face. But as far as criminalizing the state, criminalizing it, so I was saying that's a violation of free speech. Well, someone pointed out to me that 18 USC 700 was written in which I actually looked up, that the case which allowed for burning a flag is Texas versus Johnson, which is a case that was decided in 1984 when someone burned a flag because they were upset with Ronald Reagan. And the Supreme Court voted 5-4 that that's an act of speech, and the state cannot stop you from doing it, especially, and they focused a lot on the fact that the state law in Texas that banned burning a flag was dependent on the purpose for burning it. If it's to destroy an old flag, that would be meaningful. But if the purpose is to aggravate someone, then that's not allowed. And that's why they said it was a violation of free speech. And I guess what Congress did is Congress in 1985, a year later, we talk about fixing, Congress trying to fix something from the Supreme Court. A year later, they passed 18 USC 700, which actually says, if you look at it, you can pull it up on screen here.
Yeah, I've got it. I'll pull it.
Yeah, so it makes it a crime to burn a flag for any reason. And this was after the Supreme Court came out banning the flag burning law in Texas. And this makes it a crime to burn, to defile, burn, or maintain on the floor or ground, to trample on any flag of the United States, which I guess would mean the constitutional flag with 13 stars in a circle, or perhaps even a state flag, that they're going to get, that there's, it's basically a low level. Is this a misdemeanor up to a year, right? So it's a misdemeanor, I guess. So
yeah, it's, in prison, not more than 1 year. So effectively a gross misdemeanor.
And if you scroll down a little bit there, they say, they imply, we're really not sure this is going to be legal. So anyone gets hit with this, if you're looking at Section D, go straight to the Supreme Court, let them decide whether or not this statute is legal. And I don't think anyone's ever challenged this. I don't think it's come up. But so now you and I think, are familiar with the Texas versus Johnson decision. And maybe we're not familiar with the fact that technically that's a crime to burn a flag.
Hold on. Let me hold on there for you, because I think that subsection D there is critical, because it goes directly to the Supreme Court. And I'll tell you why. First of all, there is the ability of the government to make something like this illegal. However, they have to be, the legality of it has to be curtailed under the same constitutional protections we're given. So let me address this for the chat. Burning flags, yes, is free speech. That just the concept of I'm burning a flag because I'm mad at the government, or I think that the country's in crisis or whatever, that is quintessential political speech. It's protected at the highest levels. And that means that the government has to overcome strict scrutiny, right? So strict scrutiny on speech or any of these other enumerated expression rights requires that a compelling government interest and the least restrictive means. So the enforcement or the law itself has to be narrowly tailored, so it's the least restrictive way possible. So what you can't do is make it illegal to burn a flag for a political purpose. Now, there's a difference, as a distinction, as you brought up. The person on X said, look, this wasn't their flag though, right? Like they're taking a flag from a monument, or they're taking a flag from someone else.
You're vandalizing someone else's property.
Right. That's different. That's a whole separate crime, and no amount of free speech gets you around the fact that you stole someone else's thing and vandalized that. Right. But if we're talking just
can I put a pin on you for a second? I just want to say that it's not just that it's their flag. I actually was making the point today that if you're taking down an American flag that was put up by the public, and then you're replacing with another flag, which that's what they did. They replaced it with they burned the American flag and hoisted up a Palestinian flag. And I'll tell you right now, I don't care
illegal in my opinion.
I don't care if it's a Palestinian flag. I don't care if it's an Israeli flag. I don't care if it's a gay pride flag or any other stupid flag. If you're taking down an American flag and putting up a different flag in its place, to me, that is an act of insurrection. That is saying that the dominance of the United States is no longer here, and we are now making a statement that this area here with this flag that the public decided is now we want to make a statement right here in this spot that this is American soil with American values and American freedoms and everything that America stands for. You want to take that down and say, no, this stands for something other than that, which inherently means less than that, because there is no flag greater than American flag. If someone's going to do that, that is an act of insurrection, and they should be prosecuted under 18 USC 2383 for an act of insurrection. I don't care whether it's taking over a government building. I don't care about any other stuff. I care about the fact that you're basically saying America doesn't rule here any longer, and that to me is not free speech when it's the public's flag. The government is our representative for the public. It's the public flag that's being hoisted up there. You say, I'm taking this down and replacing it. I don't even care if you treat the flag respectfully. That's still insurrection. But,
I agree.
Yeah. So I wanted to get that off my chest before we get into the concept of like someone else's flag and taking down a flag and all that other stuff as far as the criminality that actually exists rather than the way it should be.
Yeah. If you're taking the public's flag, like, at the very minimum, you have an act of theft against the public. And that's at the very minimum. That's like kids being dorky vandals or whatever, edgelords. They do it. I don't think that's insurrection. Now, when you say we're taking down a flag, we're raising a foreign nation's flag or a political opponent's flag of some sort, like the Communist Party or something like that, right? That I agree. That goes towards insurrection. That goes towards a different sort of concept. So we have to distinguish the act, and this is how American law works. You have to distinguish the act and the intent of the act with the content of speech or expression that may be contained as part of the act. The illegal act is to take the flag and to replace it with something else. The illegal act is not the illegal act is not just merely burning a flag. If you take your own flag and you buy it and you say, I'm going to burn this flag because of my political beliefs, go for it. That's your right to do so. Now, when we're talking about 18 USC 700, desecration of the flag of the United States is, my understanding, extremely limited enforcement to the idea that you're desecrating the flag for the purposes of desecrating the flag, not for making political speech. And that's why I would suggest that subsection D says any appeal of any final order on this goes directly to the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court immediately is hearing they are granted appellate jurisdiction over this, and they are immediately hearing whether or not this is a speech related enforcement of this, or if this is a quote unquote properly enforced within the narrow tailoring of the statute. Does that make sense?
It's a little bit complicated as far as what factual elements would you bring in to try and establish the nature of whether it's speech versus destruction versus.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you would just have to say, is there a contemporary statement from the person saying, fuck this flag? And
Right.
The question is that political speech or not? I don't know. But if the person's saying, America's lost and our government is trampling us, so I'm going to burn this flag or trample the flag, like that becomes political speech really quickly. So yeah, you have to come up with whatever fact set makes this a desecration of the flag, not an act of political expression. And because the government cannot outlaw political expression based on it can, but it's very difficult to outlaw political expression based on the content of it, or the viewpoint, I should say. And if the viewpoint is negative America, that the whole purpose of the Constitution was to allow us to be negative towards our own government.
That's true. Which is why the Supreme Court has routinely said that political speech is the most protected speech, although I would argue that it's very hard to understand exactly in how that manifests. Meaning it's nice to say that it's the most protected speech, but now go explain to me, okay, so how would that make political speech more protected than some speech I'm giving about Einstein?
Right.
Like why is that more protected? In what way? I can understand why, but in what way will that be more protected?
Yeah, and that's a weird one because it's like how the the main ways I can see an easier distinction is commercial speech versus political speech.
Okay.
So if you have a sign in your yard, right? You can have a sign that says the government is oppressive, right? You could put that sign up, and that's political
Right.
speech. You put up a sign that says I want to sell my boat for $25,000. That's commercial speech. It's not political. And so a city ordinance or could have like a regulation on signs that say, yeah, you can't have commercial signs on your lawn, but they would have a harder time like getting rid of political signs unless they regulate all signs in the exact same way. So they're content neutral, but you get closer towards being able to go outside those ordinances or statutes if it's political speech versus, again, purely commercial speech, I think is the term that's used by the Supreme Court. And you get that with handing out leaflets and flyers and stuff like that. Is this political or is this purely commercial? Are you outside the abortion clinic? Are you handing out pamphlets about the sanctity of life or something? Or are you handing out ads for lawnmowers? Like, I mean, those are two different categories of.
I guess that would be one way it could manifest. You talk about zoning on signage. My brother-in-law was telling me he used to work for a brokerage firm in Midtown. He was telling me that their monthly bill for lights. I know this is totally random, but they were on Broadway.
Oh my God!
He said their monthly bill for lights, which by statute they were required to keep on during all nighttime hours, was $120,000 a month.
That's insane.
That's how much they had to spend on their lighting expense in order to rent out the property that they had rented out. $120,000 a month for whatever stupid, ridiculous lights that they have. And that's a government ordinance with respect to signage and things that are required. And they certainly were not allowed. And I know in New York City, there's all sorts of regulations as far as, everything you put up there. There's going to be countless ordinances, aside from the contractual elements you'll have with the private owner. But there's all these different ordinances there. It's the most heavily regulated district imaginable.
And then the question would be, though, is like if you use that and you say that part of that is like a lighted sign, and you put on your lighted sign, the government's oppressive rules make me pay 120 grand a month for the stupid freaking sign to blind you. Like, can you say that? Can they regulate that out? Because that's a viewpoint based political speech happening within it, but you're technically within many of the regulations of the sign, right? Like you're keeping it on, you're doing that part, but I would imagine they wouldn't want you to say that. So that becomes a question. I actually hate like local ordinances about signs, and I know lawbertarian or whatever, but if you open a business and it's like, well, you grab it, you get a space for a shop and you're like, oh, I just want to put a sign up that says, oh yeah, you can come buy stuff here. And they're like, whoa. You have to get a permit for that. It's like, why? It's like a piece of plastic that goes above a door. And they're like, you got to make sure that's okay. It's an okay piece of plastic. Or if you want to like put a flag out on the side of the road that says like barber shop or whatever, so that people driving by are like, oh, I can get my hair cut there. It's like, whoa. Did you get permission to put that up? It's like, what do you mean permission? It's a freaking flag sign thing that just says barbershop here. And you get into this cycle of like having to ask government for all of this stuff to do basic business. And it just increased costs and wastes time and energy. And it's like, person's like, I just want to sell some damn shoes, man. Like, I just want to open a shop and sell some shoes. Why is that a problem? They're like, well, you can't tell people you're selling shoes here. It's different if it's like you have to conform to the rental agreement because you're leasing from a place and they want like uniform font and lettering on the signage. Okay, that makes sense because that's a contract. But when the city's like, whoa, like, I know that you want to put a sign up because you're going to sell some shoes, but listen, you better ask Jerry. Jerry's been reviewing signs for 30 years, and he's the one who's going to determine if your sign needs to go up.
Yeah,
well, what the hell does Jerry know?
Yeah, some loser is deciding every sign in the area. Yeah,
I just hate it. Like I hate that little nonsensical stuff, those little intrusions. And any small business owner has to deal with thousands of them. They're like, oh, well, Like, it'd really be nice to have a sink for my employees to wash their hands. It's like, wow, good luck on the permitting on that. This building is not up to code. It's like, but that's the landlord's fault. Like, not anymore. It's your expense now, buddy. I hate it. Jay sent a sticker of a flying pear. Scorched Earth Mode says, are you familiar with the lull countess of stuttering John Melendez? He's constantly threatening to sue people while doxing and threatening. Please look into. John Melendez is from the Dabbleverse, I guess. He's from like the old Howard Stern show or Opie and Anthony or something. And I don't know much of anything about him other than there's a very dedicated group of people who really care about that. And I don't even know who he is.
No, I didn't know. I mean, I know O&A and I know who Howard Stern is. And how he
do you know who John Melendez is?
No.
Was?
Is that Stuttering John?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So he was a mainstay on Howard Stern for decades, I think.
Yeah.
I assume Howard Stern is still on the air, although I'm not even sure if that's actually true or he retired.
I don't know. I like, God, I had a really bad, really inappropriate joke that I'm not going to say.
The irony of this dude who literally made his living by being, he became known for being a shock jock. And
I hate him.
He's the biggest hypocrite in history, where he's like, screaming about Trump being a racist. And it's like, you're a freaking lunatic. This dude literally made his career by cutting racist humor. And he's now coming out now, like, the prince of wokeness. Oh my God. That guy.
Yeah. And he stole all of the pubic hair and put it on his head. That's where it all went. That's why no one actually is shaved. It just all went to Howard Stern's head. It's just giant.
I was wondering why my bathroom floor was so clean. So there you go.
Guy sucks. Yeah, him sitting there like policing anybody's speech or talking about, oh, well, we need to have like appropriate. It's like, I watched you ask questions of a porn star riding a masturbation device. Like, ask 20 questions as you cranked the dial up while going. And this is all just fine. And now you're coming out and being like, we need to respect women. It's like, oh my God, who are you? Like, what happened? What skins, like, who's wearing the skin suit of Howard Stern?
Yeah.
Let's see. Scott Vandenheuvel says, also, I've watched you since Rittenhouse and I hope your journey forward goes well. Fight the government. Fight. XXX homo pope. XOXO homo pope.
Wasn't it cool that like when Trump got shot, he basically quoted your intro right there?
Yeah, he did. Wasn't it amazing?
What's the first thing that comes to my mind? Fight
like hell. And he's like, fight like hell. And then I saw Kamala Harris say, we're going to fight like hell. And I'm like, impeach her. Hey, what do you think about the articles of impeachment raised against Kamala Harris? Waste of time?
It's such theater. It's like, we're the good guys. We're going to virtue signal to our base that we don't like her. We know there's zero chance that this is going to happen. The only reason we're doing it now is because she's the presumptive nominee, I guess. And that's why now, I mean, is she incompetent? Yes. Is she an utter disaster in anything that has the misfortune of being within 400 yards of her? Yes. Does that mean that she should not have been impeached? Should have been impeached a long time ago? 100%. Why are you doing it now? It's transparent. It's because she's the presumptive nominee, and you look like so petty and loserish. You look like a complete cuck that you're desperately trying to find some way to knock her out. And now you're going to force everyone in the House to basically join up in your cuckoldry, or else risk being alienated by the base that they're going to, you're okay with Kamala? You like Kamala? So it's like, now I have to sign up with your loser petition to have her on this going nowhere application that even if we pass this in the House, we know there's zero chance that she's actually going to be impeached in the Senate, and it's an utter waste of time. It's humiliating. It just seems so loserish. That's my short answer.
The annoying thing is, back when Trump was impeached the first time, and then definitely when he was impeached the second time, it was like, oh, this is going to be a thing now. Every president, they're going to have articles of impeachment raised all the time. It's going to be constant, because if they can just land one in the House, If they could just pass, it was like, aha, we impeached you. Now you're bad because Trump was impeached and he was bad. It's like, no, can we not do the back and forth, please? Like,
Yes.
Kamala Harris is garbage, but let her like
stop looking backward. We need to look at what can be unburdened by what has been. Look to what can be unburdened by what has been.
Let's see.
You didn't get it. You didn't know that that's her thing?
Oh, wait, no, sorry. Yeah, I've seen the quote, but it's not like ingrained into me.
4 minutes of her saying that in one speech after another. One speech after another.
Unburdened.
Like it's the most unburdened by what has been. Like, what's the most seriousness? Like, this is the first thing that just popped into my head that I have to say it now so that we can all walk away with this profound words that I'm about to drop on you.
Weren't the unburdened the eunuch warriors from the Game of Thrones?
No, that was the oh God, not unburdened.
Let's see. Oh shit, that's a Warhammer 40K thing that I'm thinking of, the unburdened. It's cool. Those were the unsullied. They were the unsullied.
Yes.
Okay. See,
yes.
I was confusing it with the unburdened.
Yes, the unsullied, who you can rip their nipple off and they won't flinch.
Yeah, it's they don't mind. They don't need those anyways, Joe. Joe, why do they need nipples?
Why would you need nipples?
I don't know. Tracy Collins says speechwriter video is 6-year-old kid, not 6 years ago. Okay, so Kamala Harris's speechwriter is a 6-year-old child. Sounds kind of funny. Drop Barracuda says, how has the left not picked up that Kamala isn't an African-American and is married to a cis, white, and Jewish man? A lot of strikes to them. Well, I have no idea. Someone was saying Kamala is not born as a natural born citizen of the United States. Do you know anything about like this claim? Not born here of American origin, says Thos Almon.
I really hope he doesn't go down that road. There's so many failings with her. Why look desperate to try and get rid of her when all it's going to do is resurrect his whole birtherism claims about Obama, which frankly, I actually still think to this day that he was never an American citizen. He was not born in America. I actually think his claims had legitimate bases, and that the ridiculous birth certificate that he popped up within 3 years into his administration seemed as sus as imaginable. But at this stage of the political atmosphere, we understand that everyone is going to pretend that Obama actually was born in Hawaii, and that if you say otherwise in the political arena, that people are going to look down at you. So why resurrect that if you're Donald Trump instead of riding high on the fact that you're the most badass leader that's ever run for office?
But I mean, what is people are saying she's an anchor baby, so what I'm guessing is her parents weren't U.S. citizens. She was born in the United States, like in the actual physical land of the United States. Is that what the
I think that would be fine anyway. Well,
I mean, under current jurisprudence, yeah. But some people think that shouldn't confer citizenship automatically just by being within the territorial U.S. I was just curious what the actual claim was, because I'm not familiar with it.
Well, look, I was actually talking earlier tonight how I'm not a big fan of the notion that any person who steps on our soil automatically has conferred upon them our Bill of Rights protections. So, yeah, I'm not a big fan of the idea. I think that part of American privilege is that you're an American citizen, and that's why you have American privilege, not that you're here and you managed to swim across or walk across our borders under Biden's watch. And then all of a sudden now you have all the blessings of liberty conferred upon you. I don't think that's what our founders actually had in mind. And I also think that philosophically it doesn't really make sense. And I argued with that with a whole bunch of people. But one in particular who just kept coming at me with one argument after another. But the point is,
was it destiny?
No. What happened to that guy?
What happened to him?
He used to be able to make an argument
No, he just talked fast, so it seemed like he was making an argument.
He would gaslight, and what he would do is what one of the things he used to love doing is that he would throw at you these lightning different thoughts, and some of them in the most arcane areas where it's like areas that no one knows anything about, and he's like, well, what about 1987 when the Houthis were the bombing of the Braslamanian incident, and you're like, I'm not. Oh, you don't know about that. Oh, okay. So that's why you had that position. Let me lord over you this stupid, ridiculous incident that I happened to read about 20 minutes ago, and now make it seem like I'm your intellectual superior, and you're sitting here trying to question me. It's
yeah, it's
But now he's a lunatic. He's literally become a lunatic.
Well, his argument style is actually it's Shapiro does it to an extent, not as bad as Destiny does, but it's something I noticed on the left long before I was on YouTube, and it was the creation. You create a new lexicon, and you use it as a gatekeeping device. And Destiny does something similar. So they did this with the gender issue, right? When I don't know who all out there remembers, but no one on earth had used the term cisgender. And then all of this sudden it pops up in every conversation about gender, transgenderism, or anything like that. And if you're not using the new lingo, if you're not using cisgender, transgender, bisexual, pansexual, like if you don't have this down, you get immediately excluded and discounted out of the conversation. They created a new lexicon and an ivory tower of this thing. And they started to do that in all of the issues and all of the spaces of cultural conversation. The cultural zeitgeist became highly specialized. And if you didn't know the language, they would just discount your opinion. It was a convenient way to shut out dissenters, because like a 60-year-old guy is like, well, I just remember guys and girls being around. Like that was a basic, very simple argument that became hard to deal with. And it's like, well, we could just shut that guy out by claiming, well, you don't even realize how many genders there are and what gender even means. And there's this whole, like, no, there's this whole field of stuff.
Racist, you automatically are because you're over 50.
And Destiny does stuff like that. It's exactly like you're saying, well, what about this thing, this thing, this thing, and this thing? And he'll pile on these little events that the audience who is ignorant of what he's talking about assumes that because he has knowledge of a particular thing, that he has knowledge of the broad topic and it can speak specifically to it with expertise. Yes. It's a great rhetorical device until you come across someone who actually knows what they're talking about, because they can go, yeah, actually, I'm not familiar with that particular event, but what I am familiar with are the standards by which the U.S. Supreme Court does this and this and this. And if we're talking about principles of basic liberty, if we're talking about these constitutional issues, we look to here, here, and here. And these like one-off incidents that you're talking about, I can look into them, but we have an overwhelming amount of jurisprudence that shows us this thing, not that little one-off thing that probably has some distinction or distinguishment to it. And that's where Destiny ends up faltering in his arguments. But usually he's debating someone and he talks at the speed of light and he has those little bits of information to be dangerous. And an unawares debater will fall victim to that, because they'll sit there and like, well, okay, we got to do this and we got to do this. I got to address this and I got to address this and I got to address this. When a lot of times the best answer to a Destiny challenge is just saying, so fucking what? Like, because he's like, well, when I was debating him on presidential immunity, he's like, well, then Donald Trump could issue order SEAL Team 6 to just kill his political opponents. Like, yeah, so what?
Okay, can we talk about that decision?
Yeah, of course. It's in the whole thing.
Okay, we need to talk about this decision, okay? Because everyone on the left, even the Supreme Court justices, seem to not actually read what the majority wrote. Okay, so I want to be crystal clear about this.
To be fair, Sotomayor can't read.
Okay, but I mean, Justice Jackson, some of the stuff she wrote was just, oh my God, what are you talking about? She said, according to this, you could, if he wants to fire the head of the DOJ, he could poison him. No. That's not what the majority wrote at all. But what happened was the left read these dissents as if those were actually legitimate interpretations of what the majority was saying. This is what the majority was saying. Let me explain to those of you who are confused. What they said is that when you have an objective of fulfilling a duty at that stage, if you're actually trying to fulfill an objective duty that is part of your presidential duties as outlined by the Constitution, that is where we are not going to start looking into what you're doing and how you're doing it. You cannot then, ergo, it doesn't work backwards and say that, well, because he has exclusive control over the military, that any way he uses the military is going to be okay. Because if he says to his military, hey, I don't like that person, shoot them in the face, that is not an objective that is part of his presidential duties. So no, it doesn't get conferred with all the protections that Justice Jackson was implying. She said, oh, because he has exclusive power to decide who's going to be the head of an agency and can fire him, that means that now he's able to poison that person. That's not at all what they're saying. The point is that we're not going to start looking into what his thought process is, because that's what he's doing. But the method in which he carries it out, assuming that method has nothing at all to do with actually performing the duties, like, I don't know, burying him 6 feet underground, that now would be subject to and would not be granted, be given the broad swath of immunity that the majority was conferring. But what the left did was they basically read the dissent, the ridiculous interpretation by the dissent, pretended that the objective of fulfilling a presidential duty had nothing to do with it. They simply looked at the powers that the president has access to and interpreted that if he ever uses these powers, that's granted immunity. That is not at all what the majority said. That is not at all what was implied by the majority, by anyone with intellect who would look at it. That's not how it would actually work if, in fact, the president did go down that road. So that's why the reason he got immunity here in this case, or there's immunity issues with respect to the RICO case or things of that nature, and the reason Judge Chutkan, what her job is when she's going through this whole thing, is to basically ask herself, is this fulfillment of his presidential duties? And then if it's articulately defined and definitely part of it, fine. Then he has complete immunity. If it's in the outer ambit, then you start parsing it down and breaking it into other segments at that point. And
you have a presumption of immunity, and the presumption is overcomable.
Yeah.
Like that's the whole purpose of a presumption. It's like, well, we're going to presume he's immune because he's utilizing the military. But if we look at why he's utilizing the military, is it for a proper purpose? And frankly, killing a political opponent may be a proper purpose. And that makes people very uncomfortable. But it's not a simple matter of, I don't like him, we're going to get rid of him. He was ugly, smells bad. Joe Biden, he cannot.
I'm disagreeing with you on that. I'm disagreeing with your interpretation, brother. I don't read it that way. I don't think that if he kills the Senate, that is something that now has immunity, or kills his political opponent, that has immunity. Because
I think it can.
How? It's not that, because look, if it would be illegal for him to do it by shooting a gun at let's say we're talking about Biden or Kamala. President Biden now wants to get rid of his political opponent and says, I'm going to use the military to SEAL Team 6 to execute Donald Trump. Okay, let's say he did that. You have to look at the objective here. If it's something he cannot do with a vial of poison legally. Everyone understands this: that President Biden could not poison himself. Go over to Trump's cup of coffee and fill it with poison and kill him. But people are mistakenly saying, but since he's the leader of the military, if instead of him doing it, he ordered his colonel to do it, in that case, it would all of a sudden now magically become okay. That is a ridiculous interpretation of what the majority is saying. What I'm saying is
that's different though, because that is a situation that would not be an exercise of presidential power, right? But using the military to kill someone who's an enemy of the state is an exercise of presidential power. We saw it with Anwar al-Awlaki. Obama dropped a drone missile on him. Now, the distinguishing factor, of course, is this guy's over in Yemen. He's a designated enemy of the United States. There's ground intel verifying that it's him. It goes through some level of process before the trigger is pulled, but the order was issued. An American citizen gets killed by Obama. Now, I happen to think that was a violation of Anwar al-Awlaki's rights, and I think that Obama actually did infringe upon those. But that's not the current legal standard, right? The legal standard is that was a justifiable use of presidential power to kill a political opponent, based on the circumstances of that political opponent being an enemy of the state. Now, when we think of this as like Joe Biden versus Donald Trump, it's like, well, yeah, that doesn't make sense. But what if Joe Biden, for example, has credible information, not a Steele dossier, but credible information that Trump is a Putin plant and he's working against the interests of the United States, and that he is selling state secrets to Russia, including nuclear missile plans, launch codes, stuff like that, that he's actually doing that while not president. So now Joe Biden has an actual political enemy. They try to effect the arrest of Donald Trump. It doesn't work. He orders SEAL Team 6 in to detain or otherwise eliminate this threat, just like we did with Osama bin Laden, for example. They raid Mar-a-Lago and they have to put him down as Trump is throwing Melania in front of him or whatever. Like you can imagine the thing. Well, Biden has then legally issued the execution of his political opponent, but it's based on a set of intelligence that would likely be reviewed and this is what I always got to with Destiny, is like, just because the president orders SEAL Team 6 to go shoot someone doesn't mean they do it. Like they're not automatons. They're just like, or they're not like algorithms that's input output. Like these are still people and they still review the legality of the order. The order comes down the chain of command. It doesn't just go President SEAL Team 6 and they're like, herder, let's kill a kindergarten. That's not how it works. So if they determine that it's an illegal order, they actually have a way that they're not duty
to ignore the president.
Exactly. So we have to consider the possibility.
Uphold the Constitution. Uphold Constitution means actually preserving life, liberty, and yeah, exactly.
So we have to assume in any discussion where a president is killing a political opponent that they have sufficient information to convince SEAL Team 6 that this is a valid attack. And if we don't like it, well, we do have impeachment.
Exactly. And frankly, I actually think that if someone was that abusive of the process, they probably would be impeached. So, I mean, and then the argument would be, well, what if he SEAL Team 6 the Senate before they can impeach him? So, yeah. That would be
interesting. And does anybody believe that if the president of the United States, SEAL Team 6 is Congress, that we are not at an actual uprising against the president of the United States? Like that the country, now look, Congress sucks and I might laugh, but we're now at war with the president of the United States if that happens. And again, you have to get into the reasonableness of this. Like, well, the president could do that. He's got immunity. It's like, we're not worried about presidential immunity at the point where the president has executed Congress. Right. Like we're not there. We're well beyond things like immunity. The rules are out the fucking window. This is Lincoln jailing all of the journalists during World War or during the Civil War. Like we're at the point where we go, we don't want him to jail all the journalists, but he's jailing all the journalists. And because we're at a civil war right now and we really just don't have time to fuck around with this. And we deal with that stuff later. But it's like everybody's worried about these concepts. Like, well, what if the president does this and then what if he murders every school-aged child in Manhattan? It's like, oh my God, do you think that everybody's like just gonna sit around like, you know what? He ordered it. It's legal. It's fine. It's just shoot. Shucks. I can't believe we allowed them. Man, Supreme Court really dropped the ball on that one.
So dumb. It's so aggravating.
It's insane. I hate the argument because people do that. And it's exactly what Sotomayor and Jackson did in their dissents. And you're 100% right. And then people read these dissents and they're like, see. And it's like, that's not how any of this functions.
And that's not how it will work if, in fact, the case comes back to the Supreme Court. It comes to any court. It's not how it's going to operate. Right. And so it's such a ridiculous fear that it's literally just playing on fear porn for the purposes of trying to play a political card rather than actually engaging in a truthful discussion to try and figure out where we're at now.
Do you know who Glenn Kirshner is?
Oh my God, I hate that guy.
Guy is such a fucking idiot. I saw him today talking about he was talking about the presidential immunity ruling, and he's like, well, the president could just set up a pardon kiosk in the White House and people could just come up $1 million for a pardon, $1 billion for a pardon. It's like he could just do that now. It's like, no, he could already do that. He could already do that because the pardon power was plenary. The Supreme Court ruled that a long time ago. Yep. He could already do that. The problem is if you set up a pardon kiosk in the White House and you take $1 million for a pardon, you get impeached. You get impeached right away. It doesn't even take long. Like people complain about regular pardons.
Right there. That's bribery. It's expressed in the impeachment in the impeachment clause. So yeah, you would be impeached really, really, really quickly. But I mean, you talk about
praise this Glenn Kirshner guy. He needs to be praised with the fucking baseball bat up his butthole. These people are so dumb.
I was laughing like anything because when Judge Eileen Cannon in the Florida case decided to listen to arguments that Jack Smith should be removed, he lost it and said, this is crazy that she's even listening. Obviously, there's no way that he should be removed, and going on with the most ridiculous analysis of law. I went through his 18-minute video where he did an analysis of law as to why it is that Jack Smith is totally fine and special prosecutors like this have been going on since the dawn of time, and all this other crap, ridiculous destiny type arguments of bringing up this incident and that incident and completely ignoring the context of each of those incidents and just glossing over that special prosecutor is always fine no matter how they're appointed or how they're approved, and that Judge Cannon is the worst judge in history. And then sure enough, she actually doesn't just listen to the argument, but dismisses the freaking case because in point of fact, Jack Smith has no more standing to bring a case against President Trump than you or I have.
Yep.
He has zero standing, and anyone in our audience has just the same amount of standing to bring prosecution papers against Trump or Biden or Kamala Harris as Jack Smith has to go after Donald Trump. And when she's dismissed on that basis, now will that case be resurrected? Well, if he loses the election, that likely will happen. Whether she survives appeal, which I think she has a pretty good chance to survive an appeal. Her decision was pretty well written, but they'll just find someone else to prosecute the case and start all over again if, in fact, he loses. If he wins, I expect that we're going to see him pardon himself, and then we're going to have to deal with...
Can you imagine the crowing that's going to happen?
We're going to have to deal with that fight as to whether or not a president has the power to pardon himself, which I'm sure you're in agreement with me that there's no reason he can't. So...
Yeah, that's the thing with the pardon power is... The Supreme Court is going to be asked if the president can pardon himself, and they're going to say the president has the sole power of the pardon. And I love this because it's all of this is contemplated in the Federalist Papers. Hamilton wrote about it pretty expressly, and Hamilton even writes so far as the president can pardon people who he conspires with to steal the presidency, and the answer is yes. Yes, he can. And the reason he can is because we just impeach him. If it's so open and notorious that he's pardoning his co-conspirators that he used to steal the presidency, you impeach him. And if you don't...
So if you impeach him, then what? He's not going to go to jail. He's pardoned. He's pardoned.
You can't pardon an impeachment.
Okay, but the impeachment is not criminal. He wouldn't go to jail. He would just be removed from office.
Yeah, he's removed from office, yes. And at which point you lose. The argument then becomes: do you have immunity? Well, pardoning once they're pardoned, no, they don't go to jail, but he gets out of office.
Right. What I'm saying is he wouldn't have immunity, but if he pardons himself and he can pardon himself, in theory, he would never see prison for it.
Maybe. That's an interesting question because it says that they have no power to pardon in matters of impeachment. Does that mean that if you are impeached on a matter that is pardonable, but you are impeached on it, that your pardon doesn't actually take place? And that, as the impeachment clause suggests, subsequent to the impeachment, you're now liable for criminal prosecution. I think the Supreme Court could easily read that in the pardon clause and the impeachment clause. They could read it to infer that, yeah, you can pardon anybody, but if you're impeached for your pardon, then the pardon is no longer valid. Does that make sense?
So give me the clause one more time.
Let's pull it up.
If you're impeached or on that which you issued a pardon, then your pardon becomes vitiated via the impeachment?
Hold on, let's see. Impeach.
Because I would think you can't use a pardon to protect yourself from being impeached, but that doesn't mean that any crimes that necessarily were an outgrowth of the basis of that impeachment might not be something that are still pardoned.
Yeah, so he shall have the power to grant reprieves and pardons for offenses against the United States, except in cases of impeachment, which is an interesting sort of
what that means. What does that mean, except in cases of impeachment?
Accepting, that's the question, right? What does that mean? And then we go to impeachment. Here we go. They should be removed from office on impeachment and conviction of treason, bribery, other high crimes and misdemeanors. Okay, then we got to go to Article 1 to get to the rest of the impeachment, because we have to go to fucking hell. Let's see. So power of impeachment, the Senate will try impeachment. So here we go. Judgment in cases of impeachment shall not extend further than to removal from office and disqualification to hold and enjoy any office of honor, trust, or profit under the United States. But the party convicted shall nevertheless be liable and subject to indictment, trial, judgment, and punishment according to law. This is always the question. So hypothetically, if you have no power to pardon an impeachment, are you then liable and subject to indictment post-impeachment conviction? And I think you can read it that way. And that's
okay.
That's
so his pardon would work in that scenario.
If he is impeached, then his pardon effectively is erased. I think the Supreme Court can read it that way. I don't know that that's the answer, but I think that the language there would support a Supreme Court reading that. And it comes up to the question of that's never been answered. Can a president pardon himself?
Which I actually would expect, given what happened over the last 2 years. I would expect that every president is going to try pardoning himself.
I think every president has that's actually one of the bases I use for my presidential immunity argument, is that the president effectively should be pardoning himself of all crimes, at least at the federal level, just automatically. Like that's just a simple way to say the president is auto pardoned for any of his acts, is to give him, criminal immunity for official acts at least. And maybe that's kind of the distinction. They didn't word it that way, but in concept, we go, yeah, well, I mean, sure, he should be immune from these criminal acts, so therefore his pardon should function that way. You know what I mean?
I mean, I would think right now every president should do that. You're a fool if you don't. Like, why would you not give yourself that pardon before you? I would sign it day one. I'm like, this.
I pardon myself for all crimes, anytime that I may commit them, anytime going forward or backwards. I don't know where you're going to go. Sometimes Rosie O'Donnell comes along, throws off gravity. She's very large.
Yeah, so I mean, that's what I would expect we're going to see, and I guess eventually someone's going to have to be tested as to whether that's okay. I actually have problems with states being able to prosecute the president for actions that he takes as president, because that implies that he now is obligated to abide by the regulations of and every law and regulation of all 50 states. Like that's what's being implied by the Fulton County prosecution. Like now he has to sit there and say if they have unique laws, and some of them are going to be inconsistent with each other. So what his duties and obligations are with respect to that seem kind of ridiculous. And the idea that a state has the power to prosecute the president for something that he does, and I'm not talking simply about Trump. I'm saying with Biden also. I don't want to see Andrew Bailey from Missouri start trying to prosecute Biden, because I think that this entire thing makes no sense to say that a president should be handcuffed and bound by the inconsistent laws of 50 different states on every decision that he makes. It seems insane to task a president with that type of sword of Damocles hanging over his head at all times.
I agree. It's insane. Robin Doff says Hamilton would be appalled by Trump. You may say that, but Hamilton would be appalled by the state of federal regulation and federal law that we live in. And that's one thing, whenever you want to like go back to a founder and say, oh, they would be appalled by the actions or inactions or the criminality of a particular president or actor, realize that at the time that we're talking about in the 1790s and early 1800s, that the number of federal felonies that existed is like 50 or less. And they included, like, all of them included the death penalty. We didn't have a flag code. Like, that wasn't a thing that was real. There wasn't like, oh, you trampled the flag, you're going to go to prison for a year. Like, that wasn't a thing that existed. Like, all of these regulations about like what chemicals are going where and all this stuff, the U.S. Department of Agriculture inspecting all the cows that you eat to make sure you're not poisoning people. None of that existed. So, like, to go, oh man, they wouldn't have approved of these people. They can't fathom the level of state control that we live under, because what they got away from in England was secret courts and stuff like that. But the level of regulation of the English crown is nowhere near the level of regulation that we have in our everyday lives, where everything you do and everywhere you go is regulated by some law. There's no, they would be baffled by the idea that we're so happy to jail ourselves.
Yeah. The changing of times.
Drop Barracuda says, how's the left not picked up that Kamala isn't an African? Oh, wait, we read that one. Beak Bop. I'm a woman. Hey, what's up? I don't believe you. No women on the internet. And I don't really love the idea of a woman president to begin with, but for sure, please God, don't let the first woman president be her. Yeah, her or Hillary have been really not pleasant choices. Allegan News says Big Mike for POTUS elect first trans black man president. Oh no. What else do we have here? We've got Charitard says, don't forget about the F curve. Biden was down 800K ballots by 11 p.m. on November 3rd, and in 5 short hours, Biden shot up by 7 million votes. No poll watchers, no chain of custody, 7-1 mail-in for Biden. Anthony Simon says, f-stop 5.0 aperture, 1.2 40 millimeter lens. That's a nice lens. That's good. Good job. Talking about the lens used to take the picture of Trump. Beak Boop says, Boomer Mike, but glad to see you two stream again. Thank you. M Lane says, Joe, get a Blue Yeti mic. It's not too expensive. Don't you dare do that. No, Joe's mic is good. He's just got some awkward setting on his travel computer here that I think I can help him fix. Mr. K says, you tried. Thank you. One day he will fix it. One day. Better Ask Matt says, great to see both of you together. Allegan News, removing content-based reason of Texas ruling. Drop Barracuda. Yeah, I think Kokomo is the most proposed to song. You. Allegan News, if it's your flag to burn. Allegan News says, you have trespass when you use another man's pole. You can post your freak flag all you want, as long as it's on your own pole.
Don't tread on snake.
Don't touch my pole. Allegan News says, if my expression is murder, how can that be illegal under the First Amendment? Well, because this is where we get to curtail your rights, because they come into conflict with someone else's rights, and the state has a duty to protect its citizens. The state has a compelling interest in the life of its citizens, and narrowly tailoring your expression to not allow you to murder someone is the least restrictive means possible to prevent murder, but allow you to still have your expression. So that's where that is a very basic rundown. Allegan News says, you have to have your own flag to burn. If you use others, you violate property rights, and in turn can add illegal to burn flags that you do not own. D. What gifted 5 memberships. Thank you. Elf says, Nick, came across you during Rittenhouse and a fan ever since. So good to see you looking well. Thank you. Prayers and good wishes for you and your family. Much appreciated. Allegan News, Joe, we need another Destiny show so you can eliminate your channel once and for all. Wait, when you had Destiny on, you had him on your show?
I was on.
You were on a panel show with him, weren't you?
Yeah, I was on a panel with him one time, and I called into his Discord one time, and there was one time that when I had Koof like 2 years ago, he was basically wishing death on me. So he was like, wouldn't it be hilarious if you had another one of those deniers bite the bullet from this illness. So wow. yeah, I was like, and I called him on it the first time I was on the show. You know, the first time I ever heard you mention my name, Destiny, you were basically wishing death on me, which is kind of a weird thing to hear some podcasters say. But like, I don't remember ever wishing death on any other podcaster.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
not really in your character to do that.
Yeah. Now I don't remember doing that ever to anyone. I don't even as much as this is an interesting thing, because a lot of people there was a whole talk about canceling anyone who came out and said anything that they wished that the shooter had better aim or stuff like that. And and every one of them is vulgar and gross. I get that, and I was a little bothered to see how quick and aggressive the cancel culture was, not as Destiny, because Destiny, we in this sphere, we understand that we're supposed to be cognitive of our words, and particularly when you're using your words and they're designed to inflame. So someone gets punished for that. I think it's wrong. I get it though, because he's weaponizing his words. I got very bothered seeing like a Home Depot cashier being not simply harassed, but pushed by libs of TikTok that this woman should be fired and should never work anywhere ever again. Basically, we'll follow her to Walmart, we'll follow her to CVS. But she's a 50-year-old woman who said that she said on Facebook she wished that the shooter had better aim. Is she gross and a moron? 100%, obviously. But what is gain?
Yeah, that's quintessentially protected political speech. Like that's why we have the First Amendment, to say, yeah, I don't like this politician. I mean, I've said on this show plenty of times.
Yeah, that they wish Nancy Pelosi would drop dead. I mean, how many people have not said or thought or felt that way, or that, Chuck Schumer or countless other politicians or perhaps various justices, that they wish death on them. So now to say that because she said it 10 seconds after he almost was killed, that now all of a sudden that she should have no opportunity to ever work as a cashier in Home Depot. It's not like you're taking away from her, some choice position. I mean, she's a 50-year-old woman, 60-year-old woman working in a Home Depot. I said she's stupid. She's an idiot. Her brain is mush. But okay, so like now you want to basically make her homeless also? Like that's a win? That's where we want to go with this? I don't get it. I don't understand it. Like that's gonna make your life better if she's homeless rather than having to support her.
Can she tell me what aisle the barn door hinges are on? That's
exactly. Is she gonna make me wait like 9 minutes while she's trying to figure out how to ring something up? That's the reason to get the woman fired. But it's like, oh my God. So she wants Trump's bad.
I don't know. I don't really care for the going after jobs things too much, whatever. It is protected speech. Now that doesn't mean we have to accept it. Like you said, is it gross? Is she moronic? Sure. But I mean, I've wished death on every politician. I said that every member of Congress at the end of their term, they should be killed like that. Look, I think that's an acceptable trade-off for civil service. And I think it incentivizes them to keep winning elections. And once they lose, sorry, you're gone.
Man,
look, you had a good run
into the machine. Yeah. Is there a choice of death? Is there acceptable forms of death?
Still a lot of lampposts in DC, Joe.
So that's what they would become ornaments. That's what you want. You want them to become ornaments.
Yeah. Just lamppost ornaments. But again, not any particular all of them.
Every one of them.
There's some that I like, and they should be killed too.
Right. No, exactly. See, and I think the Supreme Court will go along with this because it's one broad rule. It's one broad rule across the board. Yeah. It's not politically motivated.
It's not viewpoint based.
Don't freaking lose. Don't lose.
Yeah. or just don't run. Don't be a politician because I don't want you to be one. Diamond G says my knees are unburdened by what has been. Allie B from Tennessee, please help me understand why I'm hearing parents are now pushing schools to put litter boxes in classrooms for human children. That is wacky. They are catkin, Allie, and I'm very offended that you do not know this. How dare you take away their right to, urinate into some sand and scuttle it in front of their classmates? It's disgusting if you would suggest that that's an improper thing to have in an American classroom. This is America. America.
Yeah, America.
Oh my God. Look, because people are insane and the public school system is the breeding ground of lunacy that government is fully in support of and creates. The purpose of this public school system is the same as any government indoctrination or education system. There's a couple. There's the military, there's school, and there's prison. All right. This is not like anything nefarious. but you have one guiding principle in each of these things, and it is to remove the individual, remove individuality, and instill a common understanding that is agreed upon by some group of people. Now, it could be school boards, it could be Congress, it could be some shadow government, whatever you want to go to on any of these things, but all of them have that same purpose: strip the individual and push towards a common goal. For the public school system, it doesn't have to be nefarious to just say that they have a basic idea of what they want the average American citizen to think about each subject. And so they create these subjects, they create curriculum, they create standardized testing, and they say, look, when you get out of high school, we want you to know this about math, this about English, this about science, this about gender, this about basket weaving, or whatever it is. And they're going to do that. So anything you go, wait, why is this happening in public schools? It's very simple. It plays into some idea as to what the public has demanded from its government institution to instill into children. And that is that some children are actually cats.
It's crystal clear. I don't even know why you all asked the question.
I think so. Yeah. But I mean, I'm serious though too.
But the sad thing is, it's usually some very small group of people who are very loud and know which buttons to push in order to get what they want.
Like I said, it's not the public who's determining what directly what the outcome should be. It's a group of people that are
people.
And they're like several layers of separation from the public, but the public's choices got them there. The appointment of these administrators at some point, and they're the ones who are doing this. I mean, part of it is, again, it's not always nefarious. The Texas school board determines what most of the curriculum of the country is going to be based on the curriculum that they buy, because it is so writing your curriculum for the whim of the Texas school board means that the second largest purchaser of school curricula is going to buy your product. So that means that all of the school curricula are looking at the Texas school board and what they want, and they're tailoring their product to be the one that they pick, because if you get picked, you get bought and you make a fortune. So it's, again, that's just a market demand, but you have to understand what public schooling is. Public schooling is the economic aggregation of scarce resources in education. And it's also a government institution. It's supposed to be the worst thing. Everywhere else, like, do you want government healthcare? No, not really. I want private healthcare. Oh, do you want government cheese? No, I want regular, like private. I want Kraft or whatever. But then at school, it's like, no, I want a government school. Why would you want this? Everywhere else, they're the literal worst people. Like, but we want good government schools. Like, you're never going to get them.
Yeah,
it's always the lowest.
It's not possible.
Allegan News says, who declares who is an enemy of the state? That gets very complicated. Very complicated. A lot of times it has to do with, in the case of Anwar al-Awlaki, it was Congress. They used the authorized use of military force, and the renewals of that that were done by Congress were then used by the Obama administration, again, probably in coordination with Congress, to determine that Anwar al-Awlaki qualified under the authorized use of military force as a member of Al-Qaeda or one of its affiliates or subsidiaries, and that justified the strike. Mark DeQuesney says the 14th Amendment only confers citizenship, not natural born citizenship. Where the hell to go? Natural born is the posterity of citizens at constitutional ratification, or the legally deemed natural born Lafayette. Some people believe that, and the law currently does not support that position. I'm not saying that your position is wrong. I'm just saying what people believe it should be and what the laws are often different. Malcolm McKee says, couldn't Trump just ask DOJ to drop the charges? Yes, he can, in theory. That's why special prosecutors exist, though. So he might have to eventually just actually pardon himself.
The pardoning himself would be for, when his term ends.
Right.
So.
Yeah, because they can't, they don't indict sitting presidents. Drop Barracuda says Jackson would have taught T to pew pew. Echo 3-6. Only one war between the states in over 250 years. No, there was actually, there was another one. I can't remember what it was. It was very brief. Between two states? Well, there was
a Whiskey Rebellion, which George Washington actually marched troops out to Pennsylvania to put down is the only president to ever lead troops into battle. So yeah, he actually quashed the whiskey rebellion.
Oh, did you hear that the Supreme Court made it legal to distill your own whiskey now?
Nice.
Like all of the laws about distilling your own whiskey, they're just deemed unconstitutional.
Really?
Yeah.
Under what theory? Is the Ninth Amendment?
I don't know. I didn't read up on it. I'll check into it and send it to you. But I was like, well, that's amazing.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Took a while. Took a while for that. Like, well, they're like, well, distilling whiskey on your own land with your own equipment's illegal. It's like, well, why? Tasmanaut says the Great Orange one.
Moonshine.
Tasmanaut says the Great Orange one will go down as the most important figure in focus regarding the Constitution, law, and civics since the nation was founded. Trump's Dhamma transcends time and space. There's going to be a good argument for that, actually. Yeah. Like the amount of work that Trump has done on Article 2 and will have done by the time he's done running and potentially being elected again. The amount of law that will be written about Article 2 because of him is amazing. Drop Barracuda says, Joe, it's no step on snake. No step on snake. I'm dead. The Squid says, if the state has a duty to protect its citizens and it's in the state's best interest that the citizens are able to be productive members of society, then why is that politicians always do their very best to screw us? Well, they're just trying to breed us, actually. That's where the screwing comes in. They didn't take basic biology. They don't know that, we can't always.
At least wear rubber. Yeah.
Drop Barracuda, what happened to, I may not agree with you, but I'll fight for your right to say it. I grew up with that statement at home, at school, etc. And no one believes that anymore.
Phrase. Yeah.
They just don't.
I'm not fighting for it. You know why? You know why? It's because we heard them say it enough, and we're like, no, you're full of crap. You're not even spitting truth, like truth facts to come with your opinion. So I'm not fighting for you to basically gaslight humanity. So
yeah, the person who says that, you already agree with them anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Like the who says it and means it. The people who say it are politicians that don't mean it. They've always shown that they do not care about your right. The Squid says, Joe, I hear your argument on the free speech and getting people fired. Well, I hate the practice of interference in people's lives for speech. Should we turn the other cheek or should we hold the left to their own standards? This is always a good question.
Yeah, and it is an interesting question, but and I've thought about that element to it. So what is the point to that? The point would be, if we do it back to them, it's going to stop happening to us. Or are we basically saying this is the new normal that should be happening all the time? Because I don't believe that getting this woman fired is now the next time someone on the right says something that they'll be like, wait, we're going to stop canceling. I don't think that's going to happen. Now, I mean, you sort of have to ask yourself, okay, so how do we get that to stop happening? And that's a fair question, because the cancellation of people is wrong. So how do you stop someone who's acting wrongly from acting wrongly? That's a fair question, but I'll tell you that trying to get revenge on them by hitting some rando Home Depot clerk is not actually going to make anyone's life better, even a 0.001%. No one's life is going to be better as a result of that. No one's going to be more protected, more insulated from cancel culture. No one's going to be benefiting from it. So you're saying, so now we're just taking it on the chin and we're not even fighting back, which I guess I understand that argument. You need to show some fight, but I think that the losing the high ground for that little gain seems like a poor. There has to be a better answer to end cancel culture that's better than let's just do it back to them and we'll just keep doing it to each other forever.
It's a tough question. I don't know the answer, because every time I'm like, no, this isn't what we should be doing. Sometimes it's like, God, but they fucking deserve it. And that stuff. Drop Barracuda says a measure of a man is how he acts when the shoe is on the other foot. Drop Barracuda says, to be fair, the hammer guy was on drugs, thought he was one of the Mario brothers and mistakenly believed he was at Mitch McConnell's house. John Jelaine says, I was dragged to a Catholic school to get vaccinated so I could be indoctrinated even though I didn't go to one. Love that one. John Jelaine says public-private placements is a ruse. It's a fascistic government-private deal, hence nothing to do with the public. And I have one more chat here. Let me. USA Now says, you're the best at regrowing ears. Trump, probably. You're the best at regrowing ears. Very good. It took my entire ear off, the whole ear, but I went to the doctor and he said, and this is true, he said, you heal faster than anyone I've ever seen. Nobody's healthier than you. And the next day my ear was growing back. The doctor said, nobody regrows ears like that. Nobody.
Do you think he's going to get plastic, or he's going to wear it like a badge of honor or a hole in his ear?
No, nobody. Joe, you're not listening. Lots of people are telling me my ear's regrowing phenomenally. It's really remarkable thing, regrowing an ear like that. Most people can't do it. And I know that because it's not me saying that. It's the doctor. The doctor's saying it.
I hope he doesn't get plastic and then try pretending he didn't. That would be embarrassing to have to defend that. I don't have to defend that.
I hope he gets a transplant in his ear from a black guy. Like Obama lends him some extra ear that he has. And he's got like little streak of Obama in there.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Riley US
bad.
Riley US Leafs, it says destiny is a physical embodiment / manifestation of what being terminally online and having stage 9 TDS looks like in the flesh. He lives in an alternate reality and lacks basic facts. He's broken. My Spirit to Yours says, so could Biden pardon Kamala for any federal crimes under the sun before his term ends? Yeah. Yes.
I don't think you can give a pardon for things that happen in the future, though. So I don't want to leave.
I think you can.
I'm pardoning you for any crimes you're about to commit?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you can. It's a weird, I don't know how far ahead into the future it goes, but I think you can. Because here's the question, Joe. Who's going to say that the president can't?
Yeah, this came up. You see, this came up when I was watching episode 24 once, when Nina wanted to kill Jack and she wanted an advance pardon. And I actually had this question in my brain. Can you actually pardon someone before they commit an act? And I don't want to spoil it for you because I know some of you have had it, you got a TiVo to wait. I haven't checked it out yet as to how that whole thing plays out. But yeah, she does get that advance pardon. And I'm sort of trying to figure out whether it would do anything. And you're saying, plenary, do whatever you want.
It's plenary authority. The question, where does the judiciary have the power to curtail the pardon? At some point, we have to go and seriously, like this is the problem people have. They go, well, that's ridiculous. And you go, all right, maybe it's ridiculous. We have this process called the amendment process. I think we can all agree that we don't want the president to be able to go, I pardon all Americans for all crimes going forward. Right? Like, I think we don't want that. So then then it should be pretty easy to amend the Constitution. Says, the power of the pardon that's in there, the president can pardon something, but only for an act that's already been done, and only for then we start to limit and sculpt it. Like that's what we were supposed to do. But everybody's uncomfortable with the absurd outcome. They're like, well, it can't be absurd. It's like, well, yeah, of course it can be absurd. Like they didn't see it coming because they didn't need to, because they never had to consider whether a president was going to pardon himself for all acts that he might do.
So you're saying Nina got a valid pardon. That's what you're trying to say. That just sucks.
Tracy Collins, RE Home Depot Grammy, her comments are reprehensible, but if it doesn't directly affect you, mind your business. Her boss, sure, can say something. Her mama, yep. Twitter, get a life. And then USA Now sent this guy, posted a reply to Libs of TikTok. It's a guy at Home Depot. He says, I fucking hate this job. Wish the shooter didn't miss. He tags Libs of TikTok. He's got like 10K likes in his Home Depot apron. Vaz Coleman says, Joe, do you think that a married man openly having sex with a woman outside his marriage is moral? What would you say to such a man in your community?
A married man openly having sex. He means like in a mall?
No. I think they mean openly having sex, like notoriously having sex with a woman outside of his marriage is moral. Do you think a married man having sex with a woman outside his marriage is moral? I guess they could probably just leave out the openly.
Okay.
And then what would you say to such a man in your community?
In my community, I come from a very different community from most folks. So my community, that person would probably be ostracized. That's reality.
What would you say to them?
Oh, I would say this is really that's not my deal. In other words, I'm at the end of the day, I'm not God. So yeah, do I think what I think about it ultimately is not the same as what? It's not my place. That's what so what would I say? I'll ask you. What would you say? Imagine you heard someone in your community. No, I'm saying is, I mean, people need to. The question is kind of silly if you think about it, because it's like, okay, so what would you say? Would you actually go up to the person and say, I think you're a stinky guy. I think there's something wrong with what you're doing here. I think you need to get a morality check. All right, maybe you would. I don't know. Have you ever done that to anyone ever before in your life? Have you ever actually walked up to someone, like some person you know, and done that? Because my hunch is you probably haven't. You probably haven't. But I don't know. I mean,
it's a tough one. It's always those what would you do things are always a weird question, because like, well, I don't really know, because I haven't been confronted with that before. Yeah. What would I do? Well, and then I think, it matters like how close you are to that person too. Like, what does in your community mean? Because it's one thing if it's like maybe a brother or like a very close confidant or friend or something. And then it's another thing if it's someone who's in your community, like maybe within your church, or maybe it's within your literal like community you live in. It's like, well, I don't know, in your neighborhood.
Somebody on a softball team who, like, you basically never talk to him and you give him a high five if he makes a good play. It's like, would you go to that guy and start? I would tell you, I would almost definitely not say anything to that guy.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of variables in that. I think you need to be more specific. Maybe be lengthier. Probably it's probably going to take you at least like 200, 300, maybe 400 characters to spell it out, and then I can walk you through it.
John Jelaine says the pen is the focus of the POTUS. They all ran after it. And with that, let's wrap up the show.
All right,
let's wrap up the show. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us. I hope you found our conversation stimulating. And Joe, thanks for being on with me tonight and catching me up on some of this stuff.
My mic now? Are you going to fix my mic with me?
Yeah, we're going to end the show and then we'll talk.
All right, awesome.
All right, guys.
Thank you for having me. It's always great seeing you, my brother.
Yeah, man. Let's do it again soon.
Yep.
All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us. Peace.